Well, good evening, everybody. We will officially call this workshop session to order July 3rd, 2023 at 5 p.m. We have a few items on the workshop tonight, so I'll go ahead and read these out. We have discussion on fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. We have budget presentation by Community Services, budget presentation by the Fire Marshal, and then a discussion on any subject listed on the agenda dated July 3rd, 2023, with whatever leftover time, if any, that we have. I believe that we're going to have Community Services come up first. So if you guys can make your way up here, and while they come up, just to kind of reiterate why we're having these workshops, it's an opportunity to have an open line of communication between staff and council. And for us on council, instead of when the budget's presented, just seeing numbers on a piece of paper, we can actually understand what is behind those numbers. We might not be able to do everything we want to do at once, but understanding what you guys need and the direction that we're heading is extremely important. So Dan, turn it over to you and the team.
Sure. I think we're going to start off with Robbie Hall, but we also have Ray Word that are going to present to you tonight. So we're going to split it up into streets and drainage, or the public works side as we call it, and then also the utility side. So take it away, guys.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Robbie Hall, and I am the Public Works Superintendent. I've been with the City of Manvel since November 2017, making this my 6th year here. The Public Works Division is responsible for maintaining and managing the Manvel's infrastructure. Our goal is to provide essential services to the community to ensure public safety and enhance the overall quality of life for residents. Services of the division, some of the services we provide are street repair and maintenance, drainage, and hazard control. We ensure proper landscaping of parks and playground, manage a fleet of vehicles and equipment for our service operations, and oversee drainage projects around the city. The streets. Talking about the streets, the type of work we do on the streets relates to construction repair, street sweeping, traffic control, and signage, and also sidewalk maintenance. Drainage. Our division also plays a significant role in maintaining and servicing the city's drainage infrastructure. We ensure proper drainage is taking place around the city, clean out the city storm drains and gutters, and just overall work to prevent flooding. In addition to these tasks, we have also worked with the drainage districts on the Manvel Drainage Project. With their assistance, we have constructed over 100 feet and 48-inch double-row outfall pipes in this area. The road hazard control. Public Works is responsible for the removal and disposal of roadway debris. This can include downed trees, trash, and other obstructions. We will also preventively remove trees in the event we anticipate a collapse, or if there are dead trees along a roadway. If we see snow during winter months, you will see Public Works around town plowing snow, applying salt and de-icing agent to roadways to prevent traffic accidents. Road maintenance for this year. Getting back into the street maintenance, I want to share which roads we serviced this fiscal year. These roads were completed with the help of our interlocal agreement with Brazoria County Precinct 3. You can see here, I have listed some roads. It was from, we did Cemetery from Highway 6 to Scott. We did Georgia from Cemetery to Mississippi, Alabama from Georgia to Chris Ridge. And we also completed Palmetto from Lawrence to Lewis, and Canaan Street from Masters to Palmetto. So with that in mind, I would like to talk to you about the city's pavement improvement program. In 2021, the city of Manvel contracted the services of Fuck Road to develop a pavement management service plan. The purpose of this plan was first to determine a paved condition index, or PCI, for all 171 miles of roadway in the city, and then rate them on a scale from 0 to 100. With 0 to 55 being poor, 56 through 70 being fair, and 71 through 100 being good. The report was provided to the city in 2022, and in the following months, the staff developed a 5-year rehabilitation plan called the Pavement Management Program. The 23-24 fiscal year will be the first year of this 5-year program, and I have provided a list of roads with at least one, with at least one portion named in the 23-24 work plan, but you can find more detailed summary on our website. These roads are ones that we foresee servicing in part this upcoming year. I do want to mention that we will not be doing the entirety of each road, but instead of the portion that's named in our 5-year plan. For example, one of the portions of Lewis Lane is named in the work plan for this coming year is McCoy Drive to Wilson Road. So I have some position requests I want to share with you guys to help us fulfill commitments outlined in the last slide to maintain the level of service that Public Works provide. We are requesting an addition of 4 full-time maintenance techs. The salary for these positions would be between $16 and $18 an hour, which equates roughly to $33,000 a year. These positions will provide us with our day-to-day operations and would provide us the opportunity to do a lot more work in-house rather than contracting our services. Next, I have equipment requests. First, we would like council to approve the funding for a trailer jetter, also known as a culvert cleaner. This piece of equipment would be used for cleaning out ditches and culverts and must be customized to Manvel's specific needs, which means is they actually build these machines to fit our needs. So it's kind of built to spec. Currently, the staff is using the vac truck to clean culverts, but the size and limitations of the truck make it difficult to service all areas of the city. Next on my list, I will be requesting a street sweeper. This vehicle will be used to clean and maintain streets around the city, mainly subdivisions with curb and gutter. Currently we are renting a sweeper on a complaint-driven basis, but this sweeper does not collect debris from the streets, so as much as push off into the ditches, or we'll pick it up like with the backhoe or something like that. But the sweeper that we are requesting would do much more than just push debris around. It would remove it. It would also have the ability to clean storm drains and would allow the city to build a street cleaning schedule rather than rent a truck on request. So kind of to summarize everything up, Public Works is requesting 4 additional maintenance techs, an increase in the budget for the pavement improvement plan, a trailer jetter, and a street sweeper. Thank you for your time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions before I turn it over to Mr. Ray. It's hot in here.
Robert, you did a phenomenal job with that. I love the presentation. It's simple, it's to the point, so I appreciate that. I do have a few questions.
Okay.
For the portions with the 28 roads that you have listed a part of the program, I love that you guys are outlining that we're moving forward and implementing that program. What are we looking at as the cost to be for that allocated in the budget?
So the cost on that, actually, I would have to get back with you to give you an exact number, but it's somewhere around about $400,000.
Okay.
And currently, right now, we're getting like $300,000 for improvements.
Okay, yeah, if we can circle back on that and get that information, that'd be great. For the street sweeper, how much does it cost to rent? So when we have to rent on a need-be basis, what's the cost to rent compared to if we're gonna get it full-time and actually buy it ourselves?
Basically, the one that we're renting is like a 3-wheel sweeper, so it's really not comparable because the one we want to buy, actually have the vacuum on it and everything, and the one that we rent is just kind of like just temporary, just kind of get stuff out the roadway, just for the time being. And it usually runs about $1,500 a month.
To rent it currently, and then how much would this street sweeper be for us to buy?
This street sweeper here, it actually, hold on, I can tell you real quick.
Because I love as you look for that, I love the fact that if we get it to have it permanently, actually being able to combine a street maintenance program with a street cleaning schedule, I think it gives that comprehensive approach what we've been looking for.
Right. Okay. And so the price I got right now is $298,355.
Okay.
And that would also create another position for a full-time employee as well, because we would try to schedule that at least 3 days a week. Like we have Blue Water, we have Lakeland, we have Rodeo Palms, and Del Bello that need to be swept.
Absolutely. And would that be from one of the 4 maintenance techs that would be that employee that would be dedicated to that?
Non-CDL vehicle.
Okay.
So you couldn't sweep Highway 6?
That's TxDOT.
Well, I get that, but we can't do it and charge them back?
Yeah, if they would, I could reach out to TxDOT. If they give me permission, I'll be gladly have it swept. But until then,
Just tell them we're going to charge them.
I know, okay.
Just send them a bill, right?
Hey,
Here you go.
We're going to do it. They're not going to do it. We're going to do it for them.
Right, okay.
Yeah, cool.
That's all that I have. Any other comments or questions from council for Mr. Robbie? Yes, Crystal.
I just had a question. I didn't hear how much we're paying to rent right now.
So it's like $1,500 a month. Yeah.
Okay, and what's the life? Do we know what the lifeline is of this sweepers?
So the one we're looking at purchasing, you're looking at least 10 years out of it.
So 10 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And have we factored in what the maintenance prices?
No, I haven't yet. I'd have to get back with you on that. Yes, ma'am. I know for like the first couple of years, it would be up under warranty. So that'd be we can kind of get by with that unless something just happens due to negligence or something like that.
The only number that I would like to see is,
Okay.
and I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I think it's great. I think
Okay.
we need it, but I would like to see not just the total cost of ownership.
Okay.
Not just the price to purchase the
Right.
vehicle, but the total cost of owning it.
Okay.
What does maintenance look like? Now we have to create a new, I love that, we need to create a new.
Right.
Employee for the new position for it, but those numbers are very important because those have to be added into the budget. when
Right.
we need to maintain and run and operate it
Okay.
at its fullest capacity.
Okay. Yeah, I can get back with you on that. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. And it may have already been provided, but is it possible to get a copy of those streets that have already been maintained, you
Yes,
know,
sir.
with the dimensions that you gave, and one for those that are projected?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I can get
thanks.
that to you guys. No problem.
Not on the webpage, or is that information on your webpage?
Not
That's what I
yet.
wrote down. Oh, it's not.
No, not yet.
Just a clarification there. I think the street maintenance program in its entirety is on the city's website,
On
but
the city's-
specifically
Yeah, but the
documenting
projected
which,
roads, yeah.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Robbie. This street sweeper is getting a lot of attention tonight, so. What is could you tell me who makes it? What's the
So
manufacturer?
actually, this one was through Elgin.
Pardon?
Elgin?
Elgin?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
So actually, it's a couple of, that I was looking at. I was looking at the Elgin and Timco.
okay. And this vacuum that you said could vacuum out the culvert, the
storm drain.
drains, that's good. So how does that work? I mean, it's just got like a big,
So
Vacuum
it's kind of set up like a vacuum truck. It's, the vacuum part is on the back. It has like a big hose.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take the storm drain lid off and kind of just suck out the debris and everything that's in there.
so we're talking like a 4-inch suction line, or?
It's more like a 6-inch,
Okay.
6 to 8 inch.
And is it directional in any way? Or you just drop it down in there and?
Just drop it down in there basically and just kind of work it. a
Okay.
little bit.
And then lastly, if you don't mind, this company we're looking at, do they have a lease option by chance?
I can get back with you on that.
Okay,
I'm not aware of that yet.
okay. Thanks, Robbie.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Dan, you had something?
Yes, sir. I was just going to piggyback on what you said, Mayor. So the street maintenance program, I talked about this a couple of meetings ago, but it was actually approved right after the fiscal year was approved last year. So that's why this would be year one. So we haven't publicized it too much yet on the website because we need to make sure that it's going to get approved before we sort of tout, hey, these are the roads we're going to be, doing next. We want to make sure that these are the roads we're going to be doing next. Does that make sense?
And Robbie, just one clarifying question as well. For these 28 roads, would the 2 miles that we get to submit to the county every year, would these roads also be involved in that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it would be, part of it would be
What
what,
I lay, and then what I'm gonna propose is, so the county comes in and do 2 miles of road. And if we have the funding, I want to do an additional 2 miles in-house for my staff.
okay, because the county is a little bit behind right now, correct? Okay, yeah, so hopefully they can get caught up there and then we can do some ourselves.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other questions for Robbie? Oh, yes, ma'am.
Is it on? It's on. Okay. Which one of these roads, and I guess the first 2 miles of a road are being paved or maintained?
It's gonna be paved.
It's going to be paved. So these 28 roads here, some of them that are not currently paved, having them paved is included in this budget?
Yes, ma'am.
Even the ones that the last council meeting we were told could not because they didn't fit in the budget or there wasn't enough people driving them?
Right. Yeah. So it's like Some of them gonna have to be like reclaimed, which
Okay.
means just take the road completely out.
Okay.
And then some of them is gonna just be overlaid, like with a 2-inch overlay.
Okay.
You know, that's already have a good base and stuff like that.
Okay.
So those roads would be a lot cheaper than the ones that we actually have to take out and reclaim.
Okay, but this plan does include maintaining those homes that have the 5 people living on them that have not been maintained in the past? Or does this budget not include those?
Yeah, it's gonna include all roads.
All roads?
Yes, ma'am.
One caveat, not Iowa Lane, if that's the road we're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about.
Okay, okay,
Because Iowa Lane is getting replaced essentially with Pollard and Manvel Parkway and those kind of
Okay.
roads, yes. If
Okay.
that was the road you were talking about.
No, it wasn't. I was just talking about the topic that came up in our last council meeting where we were told that the current budget didn't allow for some of those homes that had 5 homes on them, or the roads that had 5 homes on them, and that they just were not going to be maintained. So if this does include that, then great. But if it doesn't, I would like to see something that, where we can fit it in. Let's look at something that's manageable, but that we pay attention to every road if possible. And if not, project it out. Let's create a project to service those.
Okay, there's no problem.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I'll say to that, Crystal, is that the plan that was done and delivered in 2022 took into account statistics and figures, not personalities, not opinion, not bias. And what it said is, okay, what's the condition of the road? So for example, the roads that are still gravel, that should be probably asphalt by now, those are a high priority. And then the roads that are asphalt, looking at things such as how heavily are they trafficked? What is the current condition of that? Based off of the current condition and taking core samples and other key metrics, formulating a plan that really outlines for you guys, kind of did the work for you guys to say how over the next 5 years do we touch every single street in Manvel, regardless of the current condition of it or how frequently that it's done. And so if we need to adjust, as to what Councilwoman Sarmiento was saying, if we need to adjust that to make sure that we are prioritizing the current needs, because the needs can change year after year after year, we need to make sure that we take care of all Manvel, not just the select few.
Gotcha.
Good, perfect, thank you.
Councilman Hudson.
Yes. You know how the trees would hang over the streets?
Yes, sir.
Is that the city's responsibility or the county?
Yeah, it's the city, as long as it's in the city limits.
Okay.
So the way we actually do it, the rule of thumb is like 13 feet high and use the edge of the road for your line or whatever.
Okay, so
So
that's
that
just,
should clear school buses and garbage trucks and
right,
stuff like
that's
that.
city's responsibility?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good enough.
I know you call. Yeah.
Probably just one more. Do you have any idea what I guess to break it down, lineal footage of roads we have that are not paved today?
I would have to get back with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a bit, but I would have to get back with you.
Quite a bit? Okay, thank you.
Not paid, what is it?
Oh, gravel roads. Oh, I got you. Okay, we have I think it's like 5 or 6 that's only gravel still. We got Maywald, we got Jerusalem, we got Gutierrez, Scopell, and Belcher. Those are all, and like Loudon and Spillane, those are all gravel roads.
All right. Thank you, Robbie. Ray, I think you're up.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Council, my fellow co-workers, citizens of Manvel, and those viewing via live stream. Thank y'all for having me today. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Ray Word. I'm the utility superintendent for the city of Manvel. I've been doing this job for approximately 2.5 years, 2 years, 9 months. And so I started out as the wastewater operator, water/wastewater operator, chief plant operator. I promoted from the chief plant operator to this utility superintendent job about 2 years ago. And so with the utilities position, we break that down into 4 categories. We break it down into production, treatment, distribution, and collection. So on the production side, we're talking about the water at the water well. When I started doing this job, when I started with the city of Manvel, we had 2 water wells, and that's the wells over there on School Road. We progressed from those 2 to capturing the Maverick Water Plant and also the Manvel Town Center Water Plant. As far as treatment goes, we have this one wastewater treatment plant right here on Corporate, and that's the production and treatment side. On distribution and collections, we distribute the water from the water plant to the citizens, and then we collect that water as it's used via our sewer system, lift stations, and we pump that back over to the wastewater treatment plant. So the Utilities Division is responsible for managing and providing essential utility services to residents and businesses. Our role is to ensure the reliable and efficient delivery of water and wastewater. So in the Utilities Division, let me get to my paperwork because I'll just read it off of here. The Utilities Division is responsible for managing, I did that already. What? Oh, okay, here we go. Services. So the division oversees the treatment and distribution of water to the city. It ensures the maintenance and repair of water infrastructure, including groundwater production plants, pumping stations, and water supply lines, and is responsible for the collection and treatment of water and wastewater. We have our valve and pump maintenance, monitoring and leak repair, hydrant replacement and maintenance, new construction, new customer service, lift and pump station maintenance. And I want to talk a little bit about water. The city's been on a path to achieve this superior water status. Around about July of 2020, the city manager and the assistant city manager brought it to mind that the city would like to try to pursue the superior water status. You can see the signs around the city from July 2020 to March of this year. We were able to achieve that status. Now, coming with that status, it comes with a lot of hard work. To start out, it takes at least two solid years to achieve that. We started in October. I started trying to clear up violations from previous administrations. We had to clear those violations in order to start the path to getting the superior water status. So that comes with 2 years of no violations. That comes with 2 years of having the right operators in place. So we made some key hires, hired some operators, went through some TCEQ audits, requested this status, and in March, we finally achieved that status. So I'm very, very proud of our staff. With that, we were, when we started this, we were at 39% of our capture as far as distribution and distribution of the water that we sell to the customers. Now we're at 95% of the capture. That's revenue that's coming back to the city. So we're trying to watch every drop of water that we pump out of the ground so that we can get that revenue back. So I think it's a testament to the hard work of my staff and myself and the city managers to give us the tools to work with to achieve where we are right now. So this recognizes overall excellence in all aspects of operating the public water system. Now, this is a very, very important recognition for the city because there are over 7,000 PWSs in the state, and we have only 10% of the public water systems, which equals to about 707 water systems that has this status. So that's a really, really big status for the city. To make it short, this is the highest water designation that the state offers. So I want to give kudos to my staff and everybody that was involved with that. The Utilities Division also joined TCEQ's SWAP program, which stands for Source Water Assessment Protection. That's where TCEQ came out, investigated our system, and gave us ideas on how to protect the water from being contaminated. So they hung signs out at the water plants showing that we are in compliance with the SWAP program. And then lastly, I'd like to talk about the certified water professionals certificates that we have in the city. There are only 285 of those designations in the state. We have 2 of them in the city of Manvel. So we're doing some hard work to protect our water supply, to produce a good, clean, aesthetically clean, good tasting water for the city. That doesn't mean we're perfect, and we have a long ways to go. We have items that we need to assist us with that, but we're headed in the right direction. I want to talk about the new water plants. So as I said earlier, we've acquired the Maverick Water Plant and the Town Center Water Plant. We're at the Maverick Water Plant, that adds another 288,000 gallons of water per day to the city's already 1.2 million gallon capacity. And with the Town Center Water Plant, we added 1,728,288 gallons per day that we can use for the city's citizens or the city's businesses. So all total, we can produce 2,880,000 gallons of water per day for the city. What I'm trying to say here is, say if we had have a main water break. In the past, 10, 11 months ago, 12 months ago, if we had a main water break with only the School Road Water Plant, we would be forced, if it's a significant enough break, we would be forced to go into a boil water situation. As it stands now, with the production that we can, the water that we can produce, we are able to isolate that one area of town and not affect the rest of the city. And so that protects the rest of the city from having to go on a boil water notice alert. We would, if we had to go on a boil water notice, it would just be in that section that's affected. I want to talk about utility staffing. So the Utilities Division employs 7 full-time staff with 1 utility tech position currently vacant. The first would be the utility supervisor, which would be myself, utilities foreman, 1 heavy equipment operator, 3 utility techs, and 1 plant operator. And so we just have 1 position vacant. Okay, positions request. So I'm asking for 2 additional utility tech positions to be added to this year's fiscal budget. The reason for this request is the Utilities Division is so small to, we're not able to address the situations that need to be addressed. Say if I have a water leak in one part of town, then I need everybody that's employed in the utilities department to address that one water leak. If I had that 1 position that is not filled and those other 2 employees, then I would be able to send out another crew to address another situation, hydrant flushing, customer complaint, whatever comes up, meter reads. I need 2 crews so that I can send 1 crew to do one thing and not hold up everybody else. And we'd be more efficient with that. In conjunction, the division requests a $2 an hour pay increase for those positions. Now, the reason I'm asking for this pay increase, because right now, as it stands, the starting pay is $16.50 an hour. $16.50 an hour. And let's be real. You can go to Buc-ee's and start out at $17 an hour. This $18.50 per hour and $18.50 starting pay would allow us to get more qualified personnel and compete with these other cities and maintain that personnel. And that would bring the starting salary for those utility techs to $38,500. Equipment. I'm requesting a few pieces of equipment. Let's start with this hydraulic brake. This brake would be placed on the back of our mini excavator and be utilized to brake sidewalks, concrete, driveways, in the event we have a leak up under a driveway or a sidewalk. Right now, we're having to rent a jackhammer and put a man behind that jackhammer, and we're in 2023. A lot of times we can't get to those areas with a jackhammer, so that mini X would be able to reach over, isolate that situation, and we can do that in less time than we could with a man behind a jackhammer. So I'd like to for y'all to consider that. A valve operating kit. Now we have 1,152 valves in the city and growing as we grow. I want to start a valve operating program, and just going out there turning a valve with a valve wrench, one person or two people, it's really time consuming. So if I get this valve operating kit, or maybe two valve operating kits, I can start this operating program so that these valves won't freeze up. We may not use a valve for 2-3 years, but when we do need it, we need it to open and close like it's supposed to, because I need to isolate a situation as quick as I can so that I can get the water turned off so that I won't lose as much water, and we can expedite that repair. The last is hydrant and hydrant parts. As it stands right now, we have 828 hydrants and growing in the city of Manvel. We're constantly having to go out and make repairs to hydrants, even replace hydrants. A car may run over it. Or, like in the old part of town here, we have these push-on hydrants that in dry weather, when the weather is dry and then we have an excess rain, those hydrants get loose and blow off. And that's the reason we had our last boil water notice, is because that's what happened. What we want to do is try to identify those hydrants and get those hydrants replaced so that we won't have an emergency during an emergency. I want to go to chemicals. As you know, we've added 3 new plants. Wastewater plant down at Town Center. We've added the Maverick water plant. And we've acquired the Town Center water plant. So chemicals go up every year. The price of chemicals go up every year. Lab costs go up every year. Subsequently, with these plants coming online, the need for more chemicals we're going to have a need for more chemicals. So the Maverick water plant and the Manvel Town Center water plants have increased our need for chemicals, labs, and sludge halls. In the 2023-2024 budget, we are anticipating an increase in water and wastewater plant chemicals line item, an increase in the water and wastewater plant chemicals line item of approximately $10,000, an increase in the water plant lab expenses line item of approximately $10,000, and an increase in wastewater plant lab expenses line item of approximately $7,500, an increase in sludge hauling of approximately $30,000. Now, the reason for the increase in sludge hauling is currently we are over budget in our sludge hauling. We rehabbed the old original water plant, and it wasn't figured in to this year's budget when we rehabbed it. Subsequently, we produced more sludge with 2 more plants coming online. With the Manvel Town Center plant coming online, we anticipate producing more sludge from there. So being under budget, starting out this year, we anticipate if we don't increase the budget, we're going to be over budget next year as well. So our upcoming needs. So our upcoming needs, the council, previous council voted on and approved the city to pursue a new wastewater treatment plant, an MBR plant. And we've been working with Freeze and Nichols to design us a new wastewater treatment plant. It's going to be an MBR plant, not a package plant, not a conventional plant, but an MBR plant. Now, the reason for this MBR plant is the footprint for this plant is smaller than a conventional plant. It takes the place of the package plant because the package plant has a shorter lifespan than this MBR plant. This MBR plant is going to be built, and it's going to be built in the ground, which is a permanent plant. So these package plants, and I have some photos of a package plant and what happens after a few years. This package plant that I'm about to show you has started rusting, and this is even from the rehab that we did a year and a half ago. So if y'all want to look at some of these photos, this is the reason we're asking for this MBR plant. So that plant, that old plant is, I don't know exactly how old that plant is, but it's approximately, I want to say 30 years old, maybe 30 years old. So we had it rehabbed. A bunch of that rust was sandblasted off, that was painted, and now it's starting to back to rust again. The plant that was built for the Del Bello development is starting to have some rust on it as well. So we're asking for council to consider before the end of the year approving this MBR plant. Now, this MBR plant is a 1 million gallon per day plant, and that's going to support the growth of the city. Without this new plant, currently, our wastewater plant design criteria is it can produce 500,000 gallons per day. Currently, we're consistently treating 350,000 gallons per day, which is about 70%. We're at about 70%. With the growth of the city, we're anticipating we'd be past that 500,000 gallon mark in 5 years, maybe. So this plant that we're asking for, we're about 90%. We're at about 90% on it, and we're asking for you all to approve this plant, and it's going to go out for bid in August if council approves it. And we're talking about starting construction on this plant this year. So the bid process is 3 months, and we want to start building this plant before the year is out. So in summary, I'm asking for a utility tech position for 2, starting at $38,000 a year, a hydraulic brake for $8,000, valve operator kit for $3,500, hydrant and parts for $18,000, and these storage caps. You see these storage caps here? The city's design criteria calls for those quick connects on all the hydrants, the new hydrants that are built. Currently, I have 52 hydrants that need those storage connections. Those are the old hydrants, not the ones that were put in after the design criteria was written. So we need these storage caps, and those 52 add up to $22,000. On chemicals, lab, sludge hauling, chemicals, I'm asking for $25,000 to be added to the budget. Lab expenses, $17,000. And sludge hauling, I'm asking for $85,000 so that I won't go over budget this year on sludge hauling. Now, at last, I want to talk about hydrant survey. I didn't put the hydrant survey on my ask, but we're mandated to do a hydrant survey once a year. And that hydrant survey cost about $23,610. I'm asking for this amount on this year's budget so we can go ahead and get all the hydrants flushed, the PSI tested, the gallons per minute tested, location. And on the last hydrant survey, we found that we had approximately 25 to 30 hydrants that were not working. And we would not have known that had we not had this hydrant survey done. I'd like to say that all the hydrants in the city of Manvel right now are operational. So with that, I want to ask for this $23,610. Thank you for your time, and I'm open for any questions.
Mr. Ray, appreciate the presentation and all the information that you provided. You guys have a lot on your plate right now and a lot that you're working on. I'll start us off with just a few questions here. So a lot of your budget is funded through the utility rates that the utility ratepayers pay. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and right now, are we looking with these asks where the utility rates would cover the cost for all of your asks, or would we have to provide some coverage from tax dollars as well?
I'm sure that some of the revenue would have to come from tax dollars. I don't have that number. I can get that for you.
Okay, because that's Councilwoman Sarmiento talks a lot about seeing the numbers in front of us, the whole picture, and I know recently that utility rates were increased by 13%. I believe that was last year. So understanding if that covers some of the things that you're wanting to do, or if there's one-time expenditures that you're needing for equipment or otherwise, where can we find that money within the budget is going to be important.
The last I heard that we had revenue, we had excess revenue. Like I say, I don't know where we are with that, but we can get that.
I appreciate that. And one of the things that you highlighted early on, which I think was key, and Dan, you might be able to speak to this as well for council to take note of, is the capture rate. Previously, the city was only capturing 38% of the revenue that it should have been capturing from the utility ratepayers because maybe meters weren't working. There were some challenges that we had with technology as well. Can you speak to that a little bit, Ray? Kind of where were the choke points that were causing us that we addressed to get us up higher?
So you're correct, Mayor. We found several meters that were not working, some meters that were not in the system, water leaks that was before the meter. Some meters were even turned backwards, reading backwards. Some of the meters were old and not in the system. So we've identified not all of those areas, but to the point to where we can capture 95% of the water.
Yeah, I think that's a big kudos to you and your team on that piece as well. I think that's, if you use it, you should pay for it. And so, identifying those issues and making some improvements there. What would you say, last question that I have for you, and then I have one at the tail end, I'll let council speak. What would you say is your biggest area of opportunity?
The growth of the city. The growth of the city, thus the need for more help. We're gonna need some more help to keep up with the growth of the city. So that's my biggest opportunity.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
So I want to commend you and your team for the superior water rating. I know that something, when you drive around different cities, I look for that sign. I see it when you come in on Old Chocolate Bio, right? That's a good job.
Thank you, sir.
That's very good. Looking at the pictures, that environment must be worse than a swimming pool for chemicals. I mean, just the corrosion of the equipment.
Well, that I showed you is not from chemicals. That's from the salt in the air, the moisture in the air.
Really?
Over the years. That's exterior. All that's exterior.
Yeah. So it's.
And we don't even use chemicals in that part of the system. The chemicals come into where we're disinfecting on the effluent side. I didn't take any pictures on the effluent side. Actually,
So that's just
newer than that.
Just the environment of the air, steel, rain, and just water and.
Yes, sir.
Really? Wow. Okay. Thank you.
And I'm sure that it is, but just for my clarity's sake, so what you're proposing, the budget requests, they've already taken into account whatever proposed rooftops will be added to the city, so that, those numbers that cost is captured in the requests that you're presenting to us.
Again, I'd have to get back with you on that because I don't know where we are on that. We're currently working on the budget, and so once I propose it to Ms. Rosie, then we'll know where we are.
All right, thank you.
So this here is in addition to what we currently have budgeted for your department?
Yes.
It's like 250,000 increase?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what the budget is that you're running on right now for this year?
Current budget, I don't have it on me. Do you have the budget on you? I don't have my current budget on me, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I can get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from council? No? Well, let's, Ray and Dan, if we can circle back on some of those numbers, that'd be great. And then the final question that I have, this would be, Ray, for you and Robbie. I believe Robbie's still here as well. What are y'all's thoughts on changing it back to Public Works from Community Services?
If you want my honest opinion, I like the community service, and I'm gonna tell you why. It stands us out from the other cities. You can go to any city in Texas and you see Public Works. But nobody calls themselves community service. And we are serving the community. We're not just working for the public, we are serving the community. And I'd like to say one thing before I go. We started a hydrant flushing program this year in the city. And with that, our customer complaints, water complaints have gone down thanks to Brooke and her getting the information out, educating the public on what happens when we flush the water. It's a testament because once that education goes out, people know and we don't get as many calls. Of course, the quality of water has gone up as well, but Brooke and her social media, she get that out to the public, answer those questions, and community services don't get those calls.
I appreciate that. What do you think, Robbie?
My take is, I've been doing this for like 24 years, and I just like Public Works. That's just what I'm used to.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we'll let you two hash it out and work with Dan on that piece. Well, and the reason I ask is, some people love it as community services. Some people love it as Public Works. They have different nomenclatures for it, and that's something I get asked a lot is community service Public Works, or do they interact there? And was just curious about y'all's thoughts on that, boots on the ground. So I appreciate that. Well, gentlemen, fantastic job. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Appreciate it, guys. So Dan, I think we have Joe next. Do we want to move over to Joe, or what do you think from a time standpoint?
If y'all are, we will probably go over a few minutes if that's okay. But Joe's ready. He's locked and loaded and ready to go.
Let's go.
He's got some good information for us.
All right, Joe, it's your moment in the spotlight. Let's see what you got for us. City Works.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. First of all, my name is Joe Murray. I'm the Fire Marshal for the City of Manvel. For those of you who have not met me yet, I've met most of you, but not all of you. I started with Manvel April of last year. Prior to that, Manvel did not have anybody in the Fire Marshal's office from March of 21 through April of last year. It's been since September of 2020 that we've had both positions that are currently budgeted as filled positions. So one of the things I'd like to work on with you guys this evening, and I'd like to do this more, is just a conversation. So if you have questions, once the slide comes up, feel free to go ahead and ask that question as we progress through. I have no problems working with you guys that way. So I thought I'd take a few minutes to kind of cover what is a fire marshal's office. So the fire marshal's office is comprised of specially trained personnel that are licensed through state agencies, not only for certifications, but as well as licensing to provide those critical functions that we do related to fire and life safety. So in addition, as I stated, we're currently budgeted for my position as well as one other position. We have 4 divisions, which are inspections, investigations, plans review, as well as public education. So real quickly, I don't like to read off of slides, but I just thought I'd give you guys what my mission statement is. It says the Fire Marshal's Office is an integral part of fire and life safety, fire prevention, public education. Our mission is to safeguard the community and its populaces through community risk reduction, or as we say, CRR, from the impact of fires and related emergencies. So, and those are some of the areas that we strive to be able to maintain, providing that mission statement for our residents and businesses in the area. My vision statement, to be a trusted leader for fire prevention, safety, protecting lives, property, and environment through proactive fire inspections, responsive fire investigations, and effective public education. Here's a list right here of my core values. As you see, professionalism is at the top. For the Fire Marshal's Office, what we do, because we are a little bit of law enforcement, we're a little bit of fire, we're a little bit on the engineering side or the development of projects. So we kind of work with a multitude of different people. So the professionalism is one of the key, of course, safety. And then here, as you see, collaboration. We work both with our internal customers, which is different departments, especially through development services. We work really well with them because we are a major part of the CO, or Certificate of Occupancy process. In addition, since the City of Manvel's fire department is not under the city, it is under the Emergency Services District, I have a partnership that I've worked with over the last year plus to try to reestablish that relationship with the fire department as well as the ESD. What is fire prevention? Well, it's basically the way that we try to go out and minimize the risk related to any type of fire-related incidents or fires. As I stated earlier, we try to work with our design professionals, our contractors, our internal and external customers to make sure that in the very beginning, as we're building out either a brand new building or if they're coming in and taking an existing suite in a strip center, that we try to get it right through the construction process, because you really only have one opportunity to get the business built right and correctly and to code. As we know, back in May, around May 15th, we honor Police Week. Well, fire prevention, and through the fire department, we have our Fire Prevention Week, which is around October 9th, which is a reminder related to the Great Chicago Fire that happened back in 1871. In addition to the fire in Chicago, there was also some other fires in the South Wisconsin area around the same time. They had a little bit greater number of fatalities and more areas that were damaged related to businesses and structures. It just didn't get the, basically the exposure like the Great Chicago Fire does. But that's something that we acknowledge. During that week, we work with area businesses to let them know that we're here to help them and provide any type of fire prevention basically meetings or any type of informational sessions. One of the other things I worked with Brooke as our PIO, I have monthly topics related to different type of fire prevention techniques related to either safety, cooking safety, like right now. I mentioned things related to being around pools, being around outdoors, and just to kind of remember to keep those things in mind. As I stated, that's our current staff. So that's me, and then currently the position was originally a deputy fire marshal. We're having trouble getting qualified applicants for that. So we switched it to an assistant fire marshal, which would be a supervisory level position. And we did have some additional applicants. Unfortunately, some of those did not make it through the hiring process. So still currently, phrase I like to say, I'm still in office of one. Take a few minutes real quickly to cover the minimum requirements that you have to even apply for the Fire Marshal's Office. Through Texas Commission on Fire Protection, or TCFP, you have to be a fire inspector, fire investigator, arson investigator, in addition to a plans examiner. Through TCOL, or Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, you also have to be a peace officer, and you have to have minimum emergency management experience as well. For the preferred, we'd like for you to also be a fire instructor, fire and life safety educator, also an instructor related to TCOL, as well as a field training officer. Then the course is 300-400, is a week-long process that you go through as an in-house training, that you're actually at different places like where I came from in Galveston County, you would actually go to Galveston County EMC building and you would be there for a week working with different instructors, learning how to operate within an emergency operations center, or in addition, learning how to be able to handle different events either on the field level or actually learning how to develop exercises to get you more prepared for events when they do happen. Because our phrase is, we don't prepare for if it's going to happen, we prepare for when it's going to happen. As we talked about, my 4 divisions. Quickly for the fire inspections, that's basically the process of what we do, about 98% of what we do here within the city. That encompasses the ability for us to go out and talk with our business owners, work through to make sure that they're in compliance with fire code, as well as other fire and life safety codes as well. Those can range from either annual inspections or periodic inspections, final inspections, as I stated, related to the CO process. In addition, if there's required fire protection systems, we'll do what we call an installation verification and test for those systems to make sure that they work when they're first installed and they meet code. And then lastly, we also do some complaint-based inspections. Those are usually triggered when fire protection companies go out to do their annual inspections related to inspecting and testing the systems. If they notate any defects or deficiencies, they have to notify the fire marshal's office of those, and then we will go out and work with those business owners to help them get those corrected. Moving on with the inspections, one of the things that we've worked on since I started here, we were on the 2015 code, and as of April 1st, we are now have adopted the new 2021 code with amendments. So we're one of the first in the area to go to the most current code. So that's something that both my department as well as Development Services worked on late last year and early this year when we presented to council back in February, was it, Jessica? Okay. Fire protection systems, I thought I'd show you real quickly just some of the common systems. That's some of the components related to a fire alarm system. I'm not going to bore you with all of those fire marshalese details. This is what we call a fixed suppression system. This is actually what's used in commercial kitchens. So, and as you can actually see where the green is, that would actually be where the extinguishing agent's coming out. So that is where the movie's got it right. That is where all of the nozzles would activate if the system does discharge. Whereas on a fire sprinkler system, it's only going to be the one related to where the fire or the heat event is. So this is a pretty complex fire sprinkler system. You usually see these either in high-rise buildings or multi-level buildings, or where I came from, we had a lot of these in some of the bigger hotels that you have because you're trying to push water up and you're fighting gravity. Not going to get too much into the science related to how we determine how many number of inspectors that we need, but to keep it short and sweet, it's based upon the number of occupancies. So currently, the city, including ETJ, has 607 occupancies. Now, that doesn't mean we have 607 businesses operating. What that does mean is we have 607 businesses that either are operating or working through the permitting and construction process to get open. So with that said, on average, you're looking at about 200 to 225 number of inspections that you would want for your fire marshal personnel to be able to work. And at over 600, basic math, that would be 2.5 people at the current rate. But that's as we are today. That's not taking into the amount of the growth that we're having exponentially on a daily and monthly basis here. Some of the things that we got to take into account that would reduce our chances of going out and doing an inspection would be if we're having to review plans or if we're having to go to meetings dealing with complaint-based inspections, as well as if we have to go out and do fire investigations. People have to be able to have their time off. Being that we're in multiple areas, we have a lot of what we call CE or continuing education training that we're required to maintain on an annual basis. So that takes time away from being able to be out there working. A little bit about investigations. We'll keep it really simple. When it comes to what we do for fire investigations, we get called out based upon when the fire department feels that they need us to come out there. So we'll come out, we'll investigate the fire. If the evidence leads us to something that's criminal in nature, we change our hats and we go forth based upon what the evidence is telling us. And then we would start that criminal side of that investigation, which could lead to either persons of interest or filing charges on suspects related to the crime. Plans review, that is the area where we get a little bit more technical. Usually that's pretty much when people start going to sleep, so I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. We deal with civil plans, building construction plans, and then based upon the codes, would determine what type of fire protection would be needed for that particular business. So the phrase I like to use is, what are you doing in the business? How big is the business? How tall is the business? And what's the business made of? Usually is the first things I need to be able to even have a conversation with you on if fire protection is going to be required. Last but not least, public education. Public education is something like we did back in, I think it was April. I got asked to go to EC Mason to present, and the group I was presenting to was fourth graders. So I put together a presentation and worked through the what is a fire marshal with them. And we had an opportunity. I spoke with all those classes. There was all different agencies there, Manvel Police Department, Manvel Fire Department, and several other agencies, including DPS and some of the other local law enforcement. Another aspect that we kind of forget that's public education is during a fire investigation. Being that we've been limited staffed or no staff for quite a while here, we need to be able to work with our occupants and our business owners to say, wait a minute, here's why you need to be able to maintain these things. One, we're not here 364 days out of the year. We're here this day doing your inspection. If you pass, you'll see us the following year. So it's up to you to be able to maintain your business to the fire code when we're not here. So I try to work that in when we're doing the inspection to give them some kind of tools and other types of recommendations to be able to maintain as much as they can related to fire life and safety when we're not there. Moving forward, some of the things I've looked at after my first year here, it was a little different because this was the first year that the Fire Marshal's office was separate. We didn't have code enforcement or emergency management was not directly under the Fire Marshal's office. So it's kind of a trial run to kind of see where the budget was and kind of what we needed to do. I was able to obtain some goals and achieve those over the past year plus. So I've developed the strategic plan. Now, as you can see, it's only 3 years. With the growth of the city and the way things change when it comes to fire and life safety, I try to keep it as narrowly focused as I could, plus the limited staff. So I looked at community risk reduction, staff with progressive training. It should be development, not department, and of course, facilities and equipment. Community risk reduction is a very simple process. What do we have within the city that's going to keep me up at night, or if I get that call at 2 o'clock in the morning for that particular occupancy, is that the call I don't want to get related to that there's been an incident there? Prime example would be HC Manvel, just down the street here, or First Source Lumber, or any of our schools or churches. Those ones are what we would consider our threat analysis that we would look at, because at churches and schools, you have a large gathering of people, or what we call a vulnerable population. You could either have elderly or children there, especially in your schools or at your churches. One of the ways we try to reduce that is by doing fire inspections, and in addition, we try to be able to go out to some of the other businesses, for example, our restaurants. The fixed suppression system, as I talked a little bit about earlier, deals with not an annual inspection. It's required to have every 6 months because of the grease-laden vapors. With just me being the only person in the office, it's really difficult for me to be able to get out to those and do a quick spot check to make sure those businesses are keeping those systems up every 6 months. And last but not least is required fire marshal permits. That could be something as easy as we'll use Bighorn as an example. They've got the dining area, so that's a place of assembly because they have greater than 50 on their occupant load. Fuel dispensing for the fuel pumps. Then in addition, the underground storage tanks. So those are 3 annual permits that they have to be able to maintain with a, there's my time. So with that said, I'll go ahead and move forward with this, but those permits are required to have a past fire inspection so that they can be issued by the office. Staffing, what we're looking to add this year is an administrative assistant to be able to help, to have actually somebody in the office, especially right now. If I'm out in the field, there's nobody there to be able to field phone calls, or if somebody comes to the office, there's nobody there for them to really be able to talk to related to the fire marshal's office. That was a position I had requested last year, and it did not make it through to this year's budget. And the other is an additional fire marshal deputy. So with that, that would be able to give me the ability to be able to start managing the department a little bit better, having those additional personnel. What would be involved with that, especially on the deputy, would be an additional vehicle. One of the things I did when I got here, I inherited two 2015 model pickup trucks that had hit what we call end of life. And they were over 5 years old, or they were over 100,000. So these vehicles were well over 5 years old, so at that point, we need to look at replacing. I know Chief had mentioned during the last council how difficult it is to get vehicles. So I looked at what our needs are. What do we need a vehicle for? Yes, we are law enforcement, but we're not out there running traffic. We're not out there having to go to any of the type of calls that they would get through the police department. So I chose to get two Colorado pickups, 4-doors, with V6s and 4x4s to give me the ability to go to construction sites as well as to be able to go to some of the unimproved areas around here. We're not allowed to put any evidence inside a closed cab. Kind of be a bad thing with vapor-laden stuff releasing. Kind of interferes with your ability to drive a little bit. So that's why pickups were needed. The Colorados have served me well. They've been really well. And I can outfit a Colorado with all the accessories I need for cheaper than you can get a Tahoe for. So that's one of the things looking at. One of the other things I do provide that I kind of borrowed from Galveston, I do offer a $600 uniform allowance for our personnel, because if we're out doing a fire investigation, you could ruin a uniform. If you're at a construction site, you could ruin a uniform. We need to have that professional image, and we need to look good in how we are to present to the public. So there is no excuse working for the city of Manvel to have faded uniforms or anything like that. So I think that's the type of command presence, as we say, that council would like to see from our staff. Currently, the salary range is 60 to 70. When I first got here, it was 60 to 65, and we were getting very little, if any, applications. I'd like to be able to raise that up to 70 to 80 to try to be competitive with not only other fire marshals' offices, but, as I said, with the law enforcement component, we're actually in competition with police departments. I know one of my fellow fire marshals had 3 candidates for a deputy fire marshal position. All 3 rescinded their applications because they were offered $5 or more an hour to stay with the police department. We just can't compete with that. Fire prevention is usually one step under what firefighters get. It'd be the same thing here, but we got to be competitive, at least with other fire marshals' offices. One of the things we can look at is providing salary adjustments for certification or education pay. So either through TCFP or the TCOL certifications pay that they have, or if they have degrees. Another way that we can actually look at that would be doing what we call a progressive step program. So Leak City has their deputy fire marshals listed as deputy 1 through 4. As you get additional certifications or advanced certifications or education, you're rewarded by that by moving up. So their range is between 60 and 90. So we reward you for going out and getting more certifications and licenses, as well as getting higher education. I got a little ahead of my PowerPoints there. One of the other things we need to make sure we do is maintain the separation between positions, so between a deputy fire marshal and assistant fire marshal, based upon that, because we don't want to be pushing up against one of the higher, especially for a deputy versus an assistant. So those will be things we'll have to consider as well. Facilities, I know we're working with trying to get the annex building looked at and getting the layout. Currently, I have an office and a cubicle. I have no storage, nothing like that. So, in fact, I purchased 2 cabinets to be able to put equipment in right now, or in the back of pickups. So, just like all the other departments over in the annex, we're really limited on space and trying to bring in personnel. Where are we going to put them? I know that's been the phrase from the previous council, as well as I've heard over the last few meetings with this current council. We talked about vehicle rotation. Real quickly, some of the other things that we can do, there are grants available for inspections department or division, as well as under the investigations division, that we can use to try to offset some of the equipment costs. Those are based upon open enrollment periods throughout the year. Moving forward, as I talked about, uniform allowances would be something that we would have to add in if the deputy fire marshal position is approved. CE training, as well as the additional vehicle and those accessories and additional equipment related to arson and fire investigations. With that said, in summary, as I stated, I'm trying to ask for 2 personnel. One I asked for in the previous budget, administrative assistant, to be able to have somebody here during normal business hours. In addition, the deputy fire marshal, because at this point right now where we're at, that's the additional position I need. That's just based on the current occupancies that we have. That's not dealing with the ones that we get on a daily basis and where we're going to be at this time next year. So that's what I would like to be able to work on. One of the things I'll let the newer council members know, when they did the salary survey last year, deputy fire marshal was not captured in that. I did reach out to some of my fellow fire marshals, and we are way under compared to several of them. Brazoria County starts at 78 for a deputy fire marshal. And like you saw, it was 60 to 70 is what we're currently at. In addition, I just want to reiterate the fact is that we have not been fully staffed in almost 3 years. We've got to figure out a way to get that done with the current position and be able to try to figure out how to get people to want to come work here in Manvel. And I think looking at what we're trying to provide here, I think would make us stand out a little bit more compared to some of my fellow fire marshals' offices in the area. So at that point, I'll open it up for questions.
Well, Joe, you covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time, so I appreciate that. I think from a question standpoint, because we are over, if anybody on council has questions, circle back with Dan and get with you directly, Joe, or what we'll do is at a future council meeting, we'll have you here and prepared to answer questions if council would like to ask you them publicly as well.
Okay.
You good with that?
One of the other things I did leave a copy of my PowerPoint with council and you, Mayor, as well.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
So what we'll do is we will just roll straight into the council meeting now, ending the workshop at 6:11 p.m. And we are going to call to order the regular session beginning at 6:11 p.m. And we're going to start with the invocation. And we have Pastor David with Redeemer Church, who is here with us tonight to lead us in this invocation. Welcome.
Thank you, Dan, for the opportunity. Council, good to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to pray for tonight. God, I want to thank you for just the chance that we have regularly to come together as a city, to lift up issues before you, to think about them well. And I pray for the wisdom of this group. I thank you for these civil servants that are here today, that are giving of their time and their energy. I thank you for the staff here at the city. I thank you for this community that you've put here and you've placed, and you've given this group the chance to steward and to look over and to do right by and to bless and to create a space for goodness and justice. And I just pray that as this council comes together here today, that you'd give them that wisdom, that you'd give them eyes to see the things that they need to see. Lord, I pray for their families and their work and all that they bring here today, that in this moment that they could focus and do this work well. We ask your blessing over this city. We pray for your best work in this place. And Lord, I pray all these things in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate it. We next have the inspirational reading, and the first time for Councilmember Lands to do this for us. So the floor is yours.
Okay. It is often the small steps, not the giant leaps, that bring about the most lasting change.
Thank you, sir. If you'll please join me in standing for the pledges. I pledge allegiance
to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to the Texas flag.
I believe the Texas flag, one nation, under God, indivisible.
All right. So next, we have on the agenda 2 public hearings. One of the public hearings has actually been canceled, and that is a public hearing that was first held at the Planning, Development, and Zoning Commission. They did table the item due to the outpouring of community comments against the proposed development. So for the sake of at least having it on the agenda from a documentation standpoint, that is listed here, but we will not be having this public hearing tonight. The second public hearing that we have is to hear input from the public regarding an ordinance of the City of Manvel, Texas, finding and determining that public convenience and necessity no longer require the continued existence of a portion of 40-foot wide right-of-way being approximately 1.086 acres, generally located south of Rodeo Palms Residential Development and north of Manvel Town Center, identified in Volume 2, page 81 in the plat records of Brazoria County within the Immigration Land Company subdivisions of the HT and BRR Co-Survey Abstract 47 of the Brazoria County Plat Records in Brazoria County, Texas, abandoning and closing said public unimproved right-of-way, authorizing the mayor to execute and the city secretary to attest, respectively, quitclaims deeds conveying respective interests in said abandoned right-of-way to the abutting property owners, providing for severability and containing other provisions relating to this subject. So we are opening this public hearing at 6:15 p.m. Going to do the first call for anybody who would like to speak for or against the topic for the public hearing. Second call, third call. All right, we will close the public hearing at 6:15 p.m. We now have moving on to public comments, we have two individuals who have signed up to speak for the public comments, and I'll just remind you that you have 3 minutes to address the council. According to our rules and procedures, we will not engage, but we will sit here and listen to what you have to say, so please state your name and address. First we have is Adrian Gaspar. Welcome, Mr. Gaspar.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. Let me say this. I was told by my wife and my daughters, if I come here and I'm not polite, they'll never let me come here again. I'm gonna do my best. As a disclaimer, I'm gonna tell you guys this. Nobody put me up to it. This is just my own thought, and it's my opinion. When it comes to the city manager, I know this guy that I named Don Johnson, but his name is actually Dan Johnson. I think he would be a, excuse the word, badass city manager. I know him since he was engineer for the city. And let me tell you, he worked up some deals to help the community that some of the management was all against it because, well, the ordinance is this or the ordinance is that. But he was able to explain it and actually rolled the wheels on helping. It actually helped the city because the city got more revenue, and it actually helped the homeowner or the business owner because he was able to establish what he wanted to. My second item is fees. I would like you guys to see if you can look at the fees that, in my opinion, again, I think they're astronomical high. And I would like to see if you guys somehow give us the 2 trucks of dirt free that we used to have when I was on council. But I think the city got greedy and they changed it to a $500 fee. It doesn't matter if you take 5 trucks, 10 trucks, 20 trucks, or 1 truck of dirt. And the reason I'm saying this, 1 truck of dirt is like 12 yards. 2 trucks of dirt is 24 yards. Now, I say allow us, like in the past, 2 trucks, 24 yards. If you guys are not comfortable with that and you think 1 truck, I'm still happy with that. And the reason we need it is sometimes we gotta get driveway material to patch. Like me, I don't have a cement driveway because I'm not in a subdivision, so my driveway is rock or shell. So sometimes I need to get a truck that fix my driveway. Or I have in the back, my dogs like to dig. So I get a truck of dirt, which I'm gonna use through the year to patch the holes where my dogs dig. And I really think it would help everybody, the community in general. Some people will need it, some people will not. And the third item that I want to bring up to your attention.
Mr. Gaspar, your time has expired.
Oh, okay.
You can say it very quickly, but
Very quickly, I'm going to say, 1128, it's state. You guys see how nice it looks. Masters, it's city, and we don't have the funds to do it. If you guys would turn it back to the state, I'm sure the state will take it back and they will do all the improvement they need there. And part of this, I would like to see if you guys somehow could find out how much will be when you guys pave the road, just in the area that's designated for the city right away, and actually blacktop the people's driveway, which is whatever, 5 feet, 10 feet from the actual road. I mean, it's gonna be costly, but at the same time, it's gonna beautify the city. I mean, we expect the businesses to beautify their city. Let's ask the city try and beautify our streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspar. Please let your wife and daughter know that you did good tonight. You did good tonight. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments. The next speaker, I don't believe that he is here tonight, is Mr. Paul Sofka. He wanted to speak on the Croy Park Botanical Gardens. So we'll hold on to his, and when we get to that item, if he's here, we'll have him come up and speak. So with no more comments, we will now move on to the city manager update. Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try not to let down the citizenry on the new city manager position. Anyway, many things have occurred over the last 2 weeks. Just wanted to share a few of them with you. We've met with Manvel Town Center. We've met with Meridiana. We've met, the TERS board has met. MEDC has also met, and we had an all-staff meeting in this room right here. I think it was the first one that I can remember in a long time where, oh gosh, more than 80 of us were all in this room together. And it was shortly after, the city separated with our previous city manager. And so I called the meeting to make sure that, no one else was going to leave or anything like that. And so to calm the fears and sort of rally the troops. And I think it was a good, productive meeting. And I think actually the mayor and I are going to do that maybe one more time, either this week or next week, so that the mayor can kind of share his vision with the staff as well. We have upcoming meetings with the chamber, trying to reach out on Olive Branch with them. They've had some issues with ribbon cutting specifically, so we're going to talk to them about how we can help bridge that gap. And also we're working on meetings with Alvin ISD and the Drainage District, CNR3. We talked about that a little bit at the last meeting, so we're going to we've thrown out a few dates, just haven't been able to land that meeting yet. Speaking of meetings, we would like to talk about having 2 additional budget meetings because, as you can tell, there's a lot of information that we're throwing at you in a hurry. If we wait until the next July meeting, there's only one more council meeting in July, and then the budget is due, August 1st. So what we've asked, or what we're asking, is if we can have next Monday night, an hour before the PD&Z meeting, that would be July 10th, and then also July 24th, an hour before that PD&Z meeting, so that we can have a little more discourse and a little more discussion. So I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. I think that's about the best we can do, so that we're not here till after 10 o'clock every Monday night. Let's see, a quick update on our funded positions. So right now we have 98 funded positions. That's full-time employees. And last count, we are at 89. So we've got 9 openings, which is the most we've had in a little while, but there's some movement in several of those to get those filled. And I mentioned this to Councilwoman Sarmiento at the last meeting. So 2 meetings ago, she had asked if we could look at perhaps having a layer or something on our GIS that would show who maintains which roads. I think we just heard, one of them is TxDOT, right? TxDOT maintains Highway 6 and maintains 1128. There are some roads that are still privately maintained. There are some that the county maintains, and then some that the city maintains. So virtually immediately after that meeting a month ago now, our Chin and our GIS manager was able to add that. So that layer is up there. It's available to the public. If you've not moved around on our GIS, we'd love to show you how to do it. It's really easy, but you just need to get comfortable with it if you haven't done it before. But anyway, just wanted to close the loop on that has been done. The sign ordinance, if you're wondering, that was supposed to be on tonight, and candidly, we're not there yet. It's not ready for prime time, so we're going to have a meeting later on this week with some of the investors. I think actually Councilwoman Sarmiento and the mayor are going to sit in with us, and a few other folks that have a vested interest, shall we say, in the sign ordinance. And so we're going to meet, I believe, Wednesday or Thursday, to to hopefully bring that to you at the next meeting. And then the last one, I know this was a lot for one meeting, but was a burn ban. Folks keep asking, are we under a burn ban? The short answer is not yet, but Joe, if you could give them kind of the Reader's Digest.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. So currently, I've been watching what we call our KBDI, or Kelch-Byram Drought Index. The Texas Forestry Service puts out that summary based upon county for the whole state on a daily basis. So every morning when I come in, I start looking at that. I usually start looking at it late April, 1st of May. So where we were at on the max side as of May 1st, we were at on a 55 on the KBDI, and our average was 44. As of today, we are at 600 and, if I'm not mistaken, 78 on the max side, and we were just under, I think it was 589 on the average. Once we hit 600 on the average, that's when the county fire marshal will start having almost daily conversations with the county judge. Once they issue a burn ban, we will follow suit. And then at that point, if it's between council meetings, I will reach out to the city manager, then the city manager will reach out to the mayor. We will do an emergency burn ban that will be issued for 7 days. If that doesn't get us to a council meeting, the mayor is authorized to issue another 7-day to get us to the council meeting, where it can be an agenda item, and council in turn will look at that and they will have a discussion and make a vote on it. Once the burn ban is approved, then it will be up to me to monitor it. We need to be under 400 for 5 consecutive days for that burn ban to be lifted. So that'll be something I'll continue to watch and look at. I know last year we did have 2 burn bans. In fact, this time last year we were under a burn ban.
And I thought it was timely. Obviously, tomorrow's the 4th of July, so fireworks, of course, are not allowed in the city limits anyway. But the question is going to come up, and we just need to be very diligent. I think Chief actually wanted to share something as well.
Since the burn ban was brought up, I haven't had time to talk to Joe about it. Matter of fact, it was right at this meeting when I contacted the county fire marshal about it, and he is scheduled to start updating the county commissioner within next week. We're getting to that point and getting close. The reason why I did this, I'm not stepping on the fire marshal's toes or anything, but being the emergency management side of it, I reached out to him just to see where they were at in the county as far as ordering the burn ban for the county. And I think they were talking, Martin Vela, who's the county fire marshal, was actually talking about when the county commissioners meet on the 11th, that they would probably say yes or no to it at that point in time. But I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but I don't think that would prohibit us from issuing a burn ban through council, through you and the council. So if we get to the point we feel like, I think we're probably the only city in the county still allows burning, then that would be something we really need to start looking at when we start getting closer. And I believe Joe could help us out with those numbers and tell us when the time would be to issue that if the county decides not to.
Yes, I've been in contact with the county fire marshal the past couple of weeks, not only related to the burn ban and the drought index, but with some other what we call dual jurisdiction projects that we're working together on in the ETJ. And I spoke to him earlier this morning, and yes, those numbers are getting really close. But I do think, Bobby, you can help us out with that. We do have the ability as the city under our charter, if we see those numbers hit where we feel it should burn ban be issued, we can do that as a municipality. Yes. Okay. So that could be a discussion that we could have as well.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that update. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Any comments from council? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We will now move on to the executive session item. I'll read this out, then we'll step into executive session. City Council will convene into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, personnel matters, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, and duties of a public officer or employee, Dan Johnson, Assistant City Manager. And we are heading into this executive session at 6:28 p.m. We will reconvene after executive session ending at 7:18 p.m. Council taking no action in executive session. We will move on to the regular agenda. Item number 1, consideration and possible action to approve an interim city manager employment agreement between City of Manvel and Daniel S. Johnson, PE, CFM. Dan?
Yes, sir. The item before you tonight is a contract with, actually with myself, to serve as the city's interim city manager while the city looks for the permanent city manager position, should that be me or someone else that may apply and meet all the criteria for the city. So the contract is in front of you. It's about 4 pages, not too long, but if you'd like to discuss any, I'm happy to answer any questions. If not, we're looking for approval.
Any questions from council? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve the interim city manager employment agreement.
And I'll second that
All
motion.
right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Congratulations, Dan. Let's get to work. Item number 2. Update by Waste Connections on the CPI-U rate adjustment. This rate adjustment notice was included on the 5/15/2023 consent agenda. Dan?
Yes, actually, we have some representatives that want to visit with us tonight as a result of our meeting that we just had with them. Actually, some good news I think we got tonight.
All right, welcome, Zach and Kyle.
Yes,
Appreciate you guys being here.
I'm Zach, this is Kyle. We're relatively new managers here at our Alvin location, where we service y'all out of. We're just right down the road. Relatively small, medium-sized operation, 40 trucks, 60 employees. Specifically here in Manvel, we run 3 trash routes per day, 3 recycle routes on Fridays, and a couple bulk routes on the first Monday of every month, just to give you kind of an idea. So we actually have 2 kind of announcements we wanted to talk about. We'll talk about the CPI adjustment second, but the first one is in 3 months from now, so we bill quarterly. For those of you that aren't familiar, we bill the residents quarterly. So typically that would be, let's say, on October 1st. So the one change, and we sent out a call blast last week. So just wanted to kind of clarify. Not much is changing. We're just invoicing 15 days in advance of when we typically would. But it's going to be the same structure, quarterly billing. It's just the invoice will come 15 days sooner. Kyle, am I botching it?
Yeah, so there's no impact. We billed on Friday, right, for this quarter. There's going to be no impact until September. The only difference, as opposed to September 30th we bill, it's going to be September 15th or whatever that calendar day is. So there's no impact. The reason being, the only reason we're doing it is that to get the consistency across the Houston market. We shouldn't see any impact on the residents. It's not going to be any increase in rates. Again, it's just going to be 15 days early.
Secondly, so about 90 days ago in April, we sent over to the city notification that there was going to be a rate adjustment. Per the contract, there wasn't a specific thing that we saw that said it was something that we had to do, but it's something that we typically do anyway. So as kind of as a courtesy, we gave a heads up that a rate adjustment would be coming. Per the contract, we come to that through a CPI calculation that's just given by the government. When we looked at it, it was at 8 point.
Yeah, so just briefly, we ran 90-day notice, right? So we sent this letter in April. At the time, the most recently published CPI data was from December of 2022. As we know, we're all living in crazy times of inflation right now. So that 8.14% consisted of 5%, the CPI federal government data, plus a 3% fuel cost adjustment in accordance with the contract. I ran the numbers last week, and I've got the most recent CPI data here in my hand. Most recent CPI data published for April is a 4.03% increase. So what we're coming to you this evening to inform you of all is that as opposed to the 8.14%, we notified Tammy that instead Waste Connections would like to only do the rate adjustment of 4%. I also reran the fuel numbers last week. We're willing to forego a 1% fuel adjustment just for the 4.03% rate adjustment. You know, we looked at that and really, we kind of boiled down, ultimately it's our decision, right? We're left to run the business as we see fit. And we felt it was an integrity thing to come before y'all and say, look, it's been crazy, right? I think we all can agree. It's been crazy with the past couple of years of inflation. So all we're trying to be is transparent and just say, look, we reran the numbers, here's where we're at. Really not much more to it.
I think it equates to about $1 for the residents.
It's $1 savings a month. So $3 a quarter per resident.
And we do all the billing as, you know, the typical arrangement with most municipalities and cities is that they would do it through the water bill. I think maybe that's why some of the language in the contract is the way it is, because it's really mainly just on us.
Yeah, we assume all the risk for collections and customer service and things of that nature. You have any questions?
Just appreciate you guys being here, and I appreciate the integrity. You looked at the numbers showed something different than what it previously was, and you guys are willing to take time out of your evening to be here and to stand that and to address that and own that, so I appreciate that. A question that I get, since I have you guys here, from citizens a lot is like on a heavy trash day pickup. Sometimes, you know, they put it out and it's supposed to be picked up on Monday, but then it doesn't get picked up. And I understand that that can come about because maybe the trucks get full, maybe you have an issue with the truck, but you're gonna pick it up. Maybe you just weren't able to get it to that day. Can you speak to what your policy and your process is for that?
Sure, so there could be a lot of reasons why somebody might get missed or skipped, or it might be left down on purpose. So, without knowing this specifically, but in general, if the truck gets full, that's not gonna be a reason. We will typically send that truck back. Now, we do get into a situation with DOT, where the driver can't be out for a certain amount of hours, but we monitor that pretty closely and effectively, so that's typically not the case. Usually, the percentage chance is that it's a breakdown. And it depends on where we're running that day, how many trucks we're running, how far away the help is that can come in. We try hard to do same day. We typically do a pretty good job of that, but it's usually not outside of 24 hours. There is a chance that whatever's out there doesn't meet the requirements for us to pick it up. Typically, we would hear from somebody on that. You know, if it's too big, too heavy, I don't know. You know, it could be, maybe it's a mattress that has bed bugs. Typically, we're gonna have to call in a special truck to pick our bulk truck in to come pick that up because our guys aren't gonna want to handle it. So it just depends, but typically it's breakdowns. You know, so our trucks are broken down on the side of the road somewhere, and we have to send another truck in to come help. But if there's any, you know, Tammy communicates a lot with us. You know, I spoke with Adrian earlier today, matter of fact. So, you know, they can come down and speak to us in person. We try to give pretty good service. We have a part of the team down in Alvin is a group of customer service reps. We have a handful of dispatchers, operations guys. So typically, as long as we get the message, and if there's ever anything that needs to be rushed, that's something that's particularly ugly, or maybe we missed it and we don't even realize we missed it, anything can always be escalated directly to me to be rectified.
Yeah, we'll go pick it up.
There you go, throw it in the back of the truck yourself, right? Yeah,
There you go.
I appreciate that. So this item that we have on here is just an update from y'all tonight. Do I have any questions or comments from council? Oh. Go ahead, Crystal.
Okay, so forgive me for not keeping track of what you said, but I heard that there's a rate increase, but there's a savings of $3 a month. I got lost somewhere in there.
So initially in April, we had communicated to the city via certified mail of a 8.14% rate increase.
So an 8% rate increase citywide to residents.
Correct.
As a
That is
courtesy,
now-
I heard you say, as a courtesy, you sent that out to let us know the rates were going up.
So that was the 90-day notice.
Okay.
Upon rerunning the numbers last week, it's 4%. Which is
Okay, so it's not 8%.
No, ma'am, it's 4.03.
Okay, so it's lower than what you, okay.
And that's just a function of CPI data from December of 2022 to April of 23.
Okay, so based on what the CPI data is, that is brought to you guys by the government, is what you're basing your rates off of?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So that's a savings of $3 a month per home,
$3 a quarter per resident.
a quarter
Yes, ma'am.
per
$1
resident.
per month per resident.
So it's $1 per month. Okay. All right, just wanted clarification on that. Thank you so much.
So I have a comment on the heavy trash, being a victim of that service. Right after 4 months, I ended up burning the branches and throwing the little pieces of concrete that I had from a pole in the trash can. 4 months it laid there. So there's got to be, and I this is prior to being elected, from a customer, you know, the people have acreage, we have lots of trees, right? You can't burn sometimes, so you got to use the heavy trash, right? And I don't know what the disconnect is, but I finally gave up. I lost the battle. 4 months it sat there on my back driveway. I don't know, right? So I just wish there was a better way to kind of figure out what the Achilles heel was on that. I don't know.
To your point, and if anytime part of the protocol, if when the drivers go past and they see that something is clearly rubbish, of whether it's yard waste or whatever it is, if it is outside parameters, it should be tagged. So that could be also one of the options, is that the job wasn't done thoroughly and it was not tagged. Typically, then that tag will alert you to why exactly are they not picking this up, and oh, by the way, you can call us here and we'll work it out with you. So the tag part of it, that certainly could have been. The other thing we can do is the drivers can be reporting, and frequently will report to dispatch. It's like, hey, this pile is too big, let's say, whatever. But even in that case, they should take a portion of the pile. Whatever, I don't have the requirements that are in the contract memorized, but let's say it's 3 cubic yards, whatever it is, which is typical 4 cubic yards. They should take that chunk of the pile. It could be the branches were too long. Either way, you should have been alerted, and that's
That's
yes.
all I was looking for.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Which was a similar conversation I had earlier today with one. Yeah.
The city, you call the city, they don't know. They're
Right.
not the ones that
Correct.
have. We're the contract owner, right? And and the end user, the customer, I'm going, why? I don't understand what's the process, what's the fix?
Sure. And it actually sparks in my brain. We were talking about the website earlier, your website, and our portion of the website probably needs to be reviewed and updated, whereas things like this can be made simple for people. But the tag is really going to be the thing, because you're just standing out there. I mean, because I've done it, and you're like, what's going on here? And the weeds start growing around it. It's like, are these guys really just going to ignore this? But yeah, that's a.
That would have been,
yeah.
that would have been the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Right, for me, the homeowner, right? Oh, I'm sorry. It didn't meet the requirements, and here's why. You got to fix it, right? But just to watch the truck drive past for 4 months, it drove me crazy. And I called the city.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting that, I think the more I'm in it, it's 90% communication, 10%
yeah,
onward.
there you go. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You brought up something, in fact, I don't even use it anymore because it's too difficult, that if you put out a pile out there and nobody ever picks it up, you call up and they say, the driver thought it was too much. The question that I had, you just answered, you should take what you think belongs in there and leave the rest. Then you could understand it, but when they don't do anything, that's what really upsets you.
Yeah, I'll check. I haven't had this specific conversation with the ops guys. Let me check to see what the protocol is currently.
Yeah, I had.
That should be what they're doing. If it's not,
Yeah.
anything they're leaving there, if they're leaving it there and we know it's rubbish, then it should be tagged if we're not taking it. That's the
Yeah,
norm.
I don't even put anything out anymore, but I mean, I'm talking about green waste, limbs and stuff like that. And I had someone tell me once that worked for you, it was the size of a Volkswagen.
Sounds big.
I told him that on the phone, he laughed. I said, well, that's easy to understand, size of a Volkswagen,
Oh, like a beetle, a bug?
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, so, but.
You'd be safe.
But, yeah, but anyway, that's what I'm saying, is if it's too much, take what they think belongs there and leave the rest. And the homeowner can figure that out from there, I can tell you. They should, anyway.
If it's If it's a common thing, I'm unaware of that, but it
Yeah.
very well may be, and I'll check on it.
Well, I know it's happened now, whether it's common now, I don't know.
Yeah,
So
I mean, regardless, we'll
how many-
clarify with the team.
How many new customers do you get in a month here?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
From
I mean,
Manvel, strictly speaking.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of growth here and.
There is quite a bit. I want to say in the couple of hundreds off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Probably not even just 1 month, probably 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, okay. So we got another big development starting, well, it started now.
Right.
So in another year, there'll be houses on the ground, so there'll be a bunch there. So,
Yeah, we're constantly evaluating our fleet, especially with having new eyes on the operation. A lot of our processes, we're trying to increase the communication with our people inside the cities, as well as just our internal communications, so we can kind of avoid disappointed customers. I mean, the fact that people might not be putting stuff out because they don't want it to be sitting there is disappointing for me to hear. But
Yeah.
anything like that, I would want to know about it specifically. Anybody here, anybody over there can contact me directly anytime. We're right down the road from you. I don't know where y'all are out. But we're just right down here. Or I'll come up here and talk to you directly.
We'll appreciate that, Zach. What I would just ask is that you just, after you talk with your ops guy, circle back with Tammy, provide just a recap, a review to her. She'll make sure that it gets to all of us. And then if there's anything that we can do as a city to be a better partner, let you guys know when developments are coming, things like that. You guys let us know, because it's a two-way street. There has to be a two-way line of communication there.
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Oh, my apologies. We have one more question.
I'm sorry. Could you guys tell me once again your names and your positions?
Sure. Zach Ryan.
Zach Ryan?
Yes, district manager. We oversee Alvin and the yard we have in Angleton. Not necessarily relevant here, but we have them all.
Okay.
My name is Kyle Jacob,
Kyle Jacob?
and I'm the controller.
So the way that I'm going to remember that is you both have first names for your first name and your last name. So it's going to stick.
And you said controller?
Zach Ryan and Kyle Jacob. It's basically their first name and last name could both be first names.
Thank you, guys.
It's just the way it sticks. Appreciate y'all. All right, agenda item number 3, after that bad joke I made. Consideration and possible action to approve the first of 2 readings of ordinance 2023-0-23. Dan? Or Jessica? Or Joe's? Kind of bouncing around there.
Okay, I finally got it. This is a request by Foxtail Sky LLC, and the request is to abandon a portion of an unimproved right-of-way. It's a 20-foot wide portion of the right-of-way, which is within the city limits. The other remaining portion was in the city of Manvel's ETJ and has already been abandoned by the county commissioner's court. That abandonment was with a condition that the city abandons the remaining portion, otherwise that order is null and void. This right-of-way the general location is south of Rodeo Palms development, north of the Manvel Town Center site, and on both sides of this right-of-way, we have proposed residential developments that's at the platting stage. A preliminary plat for a residential subdivision, approximately 80 acres, has already been approved, and that plat includes the subject right-of-way acreage as part of their lots. So abandonment of this portion is necessary for the approval of the final plat. This right-of-way is not featured on our major thoroughfare plan. It's not going anywhere. The abandonment is not likely to cause any detrimental impact in the area. And as consideration for the area to be abandoned, the developer property is dedicating and constructing the portion of Rodeo Palms Parkway in excess of the proportion attributed to their development. A public hearing to receive input from the public was held at the Planning, Development, and Zoning Commission meeting on June 26th. No public comments were made. Staff is also recommending approval, and the Planning, Development, and Zoning Commission is forwarding a favorable recommendation. If y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
And thank you for that update. Any questions from council? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed, motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Next item on the agenda, agenda item number 4, consideration and possible action to award bid items for the gardens at Croy Park Phase 1 to Landscape Art. Dan?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So we discussed this project at a previous council meeting, and staff took council's input and were able to go back and visit with the number one, I guess, selected firm to see if we could in fact get the project within this year's budget, and they worked very well with us. We were able to do it into 2 different phases. So what we got before you tonight is the overall criteria. We had 5 different businesses actually submit an RFP or statement of qualifications for this project, and they were ranked. So if you recall, this was one of those projects where it wasn't just the lowest bidder. There were actually 5 different components that we looked at, that the selection committee looked at. Things like company history, personnel, staffing, experience, how quick can they get on the project, how long have they been in business, the referrals, and of course, part of it was the cost as well. So the number one selection was landscape art, or is landscape art, and unfortunately they happen to also be the most expensive, but it's just the way it happened. So it was a little over $400,000, and they were able to split it into 2 phases. The first phase actually comes in within our budget that we have already allocated in this year's budget. So what you have before you tonight is basically we're asking for you to go ahead and approve phase 1, and we can't.
Money's budgeted next year, we'll do phase 2.
Right.
I appreciate that, Dan. Any comments from council? What I'll just add is that I like that the phase 1 is the low to no maintenance. I think one of the things, council, that we're going to have to consider as we do the budget for next year is what does the maintenance cost look like with the items that are going to need more attention. The items that have been proposed in phase 1, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, it's benches, it's signage, it's a gravel path. It's going to be items of very low maintenance.
Right now is not the time to be planting anything, right? Obviously. I'm reminded, you had a letter that you wanted to read from Paul. Did you still want to read that or not?
I do not have a letter. It was
Okay,
a sign up
email.
to speak, and I don't believe that
Okay.
Mr. Paul is here tonight.
Fair enough.
So, speaking on maintenance, when it comes time to do plants, is this company, are they geared up to be our maintenance as well?
They are, if we so choose. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir. And that would be in the second phase, once there are actually plantings. This is sort of the hardscape, the trails and the, sort of the meat of the project.
Right.
And then the next part is the stuff that you're going to have to.
Yeah, I don't want Robbie out there watering grass.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're all on the same, Robbie and I are on the same page. Yes, sir.
And then I believe that with this awarding for phase 1, that the phase 2 does have a 90-day maintenance window that's built into the pricing. So if we choose to go with landscape art or to go with somebody else moving forward, we'll have that discussion. All right, any other comments? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. And thank you, I believe we have Phyllis back there as well as a member of the Corey family. Thank you for being here tonight, Phyllis. We next have a few items that we've discussed previously. What I would like to do with council's consent is group items 5 and 6 together. And what I'll do is I'll read them out and then we can discuss them. It's consideration and possible action to approve Resolution 2023-R-15 and Resolution 2023-R-16. These are the formations of the 2 groups for the Development Advisory Group as well as the Business Advisory Group. The resolutions will need to be passed in order for us to begin advertising and receiving applicants to then officially appoint and to assign the framework and the goals and work with those groups. So Tammy has been prepping and is going to be putting out the applications for the Parks and Recreation Board as well as the Events Task Force. And then upon approval of this tonight, we'll be doing the same for these 2. Did I miss anything, Tammy? No? Okay. Any questions or comments from council?
I do. So is it
Absolutely.
Time?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So I
sir.
have 2 questions. The first one is will be governed under the Texas Open Meetings Act. The second is an ad hoc committee that's not. Why?
Councilman, both of these are ad hoc committees. They're
That's not
technically.
what it said. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the first one, I read it was, would be governed under the Open Meetings Act. Did I misread that?
I believe so. Looking here, the Development Advisory Group, it says whereas that it is an ad hoc entity. And then the second one, which is the business, looking at the resolution, it also defines it as an ad hoc entity as well.
Okay, so I just misread that. So now, the next question, on the second one, why would they be looking at the business at the food reports? What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the big things is identifying, people, processes, and product. And so as they look to identify trends and where there might be choke points, where there might be issues, where there might be frustrations, where can improvements be made? And so one of the functions of this advisory group, if they so choose to execute upon that function, would be working with code enforcement and the fire marshal to ensure that we identify trends in areas of improvement, so that way we can make progress as a city government in the way that we interact with our business community.
And the people, so the businesses, the food service businesses would not have a problem with people looking at their report?
It's an open record right now that anybody can request from the city. Any other comments or questions from council? No. Okay, what I'll do is I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-R-15 and Resolution 2023-R-16. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Agenda item number 7 is consideration and possible action to approve Resolution 2023-R-17. The reason, Council, that this one was separated out is the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee is a group that already exists. State law allows you to automatically have your Planning, Development, and Zoning Board also serve in this capacity. But it has a vastly different function than what PD&Z normally performs. They're required to submit semi-annual reports on the capital projects, and they are also required to work directly with staff and with our capital projects director to monitor the projects, and if any adjustments are needed for the projects that could impact or adjust the impact fee study, they have a responsibility to inform council of that. So the reason that we have this one just as separate is because in order to make a motion to approve the resolution, we also have to provide direction to staff to have it be a separate appointments from PD&Z. That's not to say that PD&Z members couldn't also serve on it, but they're not automatically the ones to serve. We would open up an application process to make sure that we have qualified candidates who understand project management, who understand capital projects and infrastructure to also serve in this capacity. And so it's a slightly different motion, which I felt it more prudent to separate this out from agenda items 5 and 6. And so with that, any comments or questions from council?
Okay. So the separating or dividing this function, is that in any way going to encumber the process any further as far as getting approvals for projects?
That's a great question. So right now, the process isn't being followed by the CIAC. State law dictates that there needs to be a regular review as well as semi-annual reports. So it won't hinder projects from proceeding, but the reporting that should be happening on those projects is not currently happening. It's a great question. Any other questions from council? Any comments from, yes,
I have
ma'am.
a question. Okay, so I heard you say we're opening up application processes for this capital investment improvement advisory committee, right? who is able to apply for that? Do they have to be residents? Because I saw those stipulations on the other ones, on the business advisory one, but I don't see it here. I might be missing that.
Yeah, so state law actually dictates that you have to have a certain amount of the members that are involved in land development or real estate. There is no requirement according to state law that dictates they have to be.
It says not less than 40% of the membership must be representatives of the real estate, development, or building industries who are not employees or officials of a political subdivision or governmental entity. So there's a short qualification that is coming out of state law that we'll have to follow.
And so this is going to be a committee that encompasses developers, people that are highly involved in real estate and that have an interest in Manvel.
Correct.
And then
And not
the other
in-
60% is common
Whomever.
residents?
Whomever. I mean, we like to keep in our residents, and most of our committees follow the charter that require boards to be only residents. Because this is a state law committee, we basically follow the state law, but the remainder 60%, yes, I would answer your question. I think it should be residents that, would apply and go through the regular process like all of our other committees.
That's the only thing that I would like to see is this in that application process. I like that at least 40% of, because those are the people that are subject matter experts in this, which is why they should be there. I like that. However, I do want the 60% to be balanced with people who have a true interest that live here, pay their taxes here, and are involved here. Just wanted to make that
Well, it says
comment.
at least 40%. You could have 100%. It just says the state law requires a minimum of 40% be those designated professionals who are not employees or officials of a governmental entity. So if you wanted to, you could make it 100% in your selections.
Okay, so we can determine that at a later date. Right now, we're just wanting to pass the advisory committee as a whole, and then we can come back with those parameters on who gets to apply? Yes or no?
Well, the parameters based off of who would apply would if we want to set any parameters, then we would need to amend this resolution
Okay.
to build in those parameters. What I will say is that we, as an entire body, get to review every single applicant. And if we only want to choose the applicants that reside with a Manvel address, if somebody applies that lives outside of Manvel, we have the discretion based off of who applies. But we can build in, if you would like to amend this resolution to include a line that states all members must be residents within the city of Manvel, that's certainly an amendment that could be brought forward.
If I may, the only reason I'm bringing this up is only because I don't want it to be so open and lines get blurred, right? And I also want to protect the integrity of our citizens and the people who have that interest. I don't foresee somebody that doesn't live in Manvel wanting to be a part of that. However, it is something that I want to see there. That's something we need to talk about. We need to consider, like, who's going to want to be part of our capital investment committee board. That's a big thing that impacts us. And so I do strongly believe it needs to have subject matter experts, period. You have to have a subject matter expert, but also I want to know that maybe 50%, 51%. Go ahead.
They're 5 members, so
Yeah,
you're looking at 20% increments.
Perhaps you
20, 40, 60,
include at least 3 of the 5 members. Yeah, instead of a percentage, it's a 5-member committee, so you could just say at least 3 must live in the city limits. As a thought.
I mean, is it too much to ask for us to look at that? Would that inhibit the success of this committee at all? I think it's only fair for us to look at something like that's so simple. That's all I'm saying.
You're not going to hold up anything right now. PD&Z, until this changes, PD&Z is acting as this committee. What we're doing is adopting the resolution that gives you the choice. You can have PD&Z and still do PD&Z, or you can have a special, separate 5-member committee. And this is going back to 2003, when the resolution just simply said PD&Z is going to act as this committee. But if you want to go ahead and make a separate 5-member committee, then we're going to have an official resolution which is addressing this specific committee. And then, as Mayor Dan said, part of your motion, or it could be a separate motion, but part of the motion would be, which one do you want to select? We're going to memorialize this committee, which has never been put in a resolution form. It's just been out there. And you're going to keep PD&Z, or you want to select having a separate 5-member committee. So that's part of the motion is, number 1, adopt the resolution, and number 2, select the separate 5-member committee as the option that we want to take. So it's kind of a 2-section motion, I guess.
And Councilwoman Sarmiento, I am completely open to, within the motion, stating that 3 of the 5 members must be residents of the city of Manvel.
Yeah.
I agree with that approach and would be amenable to that.
Okay. I think that's fair.
Councilman Perry, do you have something?
No, because I see there's 2 options.
Okay. Okay, so what I will do moving forward, unless council has any other comments or questions, is I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-R-17 with direction to enact a committee accordance with Section 3A as being independent from the Planning, Zoning, and Development Board, with 3 of the 5 members being residents of the city of Manvel. Do I have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the next item in our agenda, which is consideration and possible action to approve Resolution 2023-R-18, which is designating a representative and an alternate to the Houston-Galveston Area Council. Tammy?
This one is typically done in November of each year. It's always been the mayor as the representative, the mayor pro tem as the alternate representative to attend the annual banquet for the HGAC, as well as attend the board meetings should the mayor want to attend. This is the first time that we've actually had 2 brand-new people in the middle of what's already been approved from our presiding mayor and mayor pro tem. So this will come back up again in November, but this is filling the positions with your current people currently here. So if you have any questions, I can answer those.
Well, thank you, Tammy. Any questions from council? Do I have a motion to approve? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Agenda item number 9. I'm going to read this and step out to get some water quickly, but we have consideration and possible action to award the contract for debris management and removal services, RFP number 2023-0-002 to Crowder Gulf as a primary provider and DRC as the alternate provider, and authorize the interim city manager to negotiate the terms of the agreement and execute the contract documents. Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is another contract that we looked at, not just from a low bidder standpoint, that we've got a selection criteria and a selection committee. We received 3 different submittals, and we had 3 people on the board. And so the one that, I guess the cream that rose to the top was Crowder Gulf, and I think Tammy can talk a little bit about our existing contracts that are due to expire pretty soon. And this is an annual contract, is that right, Tammy? You just kind of fill in the blanks for him?
Yeah, so the current contract's due to expire in August. It's a 3-year agreement with 3 one-year additions to it. So Crowder Golf has been who we've had since Hurricane Ike came through. Back then, we were able to piggyback off of the county's debris management agreements. And then guidelines changed, and we had to go out and get our own. And since then, we've gone through the process and had Crowder Golf. So our 1-year extensions have expired, which is why we had to go out again this year. If approved, what will happen is Dan will negotiate the terms of the contract with the company for pricing and making sure it matches all the FEMA requirements and all of that for the reimbursements.
Any comments or questions from council? Councilwoman Sarmiento.
So it seems to be that they've provided great service in return for the fees that they bill us. They went through the RFP process, right? And so that tells me that they went through an application process, and just because they've serviced us since Harvey, they've done the due diligence to prove that they're going to continue to support us, charge us a fair rate, and we haven't had any concerns or issues with them.
That's correct. And one thing that's kind of neat about the process is that only one of the 3 people that were on the panel even had any familiarity with Crowder Gulf. So the other 2 folks didn't know. They were just sort of a number, just another submittal. And so to land at the same place, sort of independent of knowing that historical relationship was pretty exciting, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, great. And the RFP was created in a manner that other people could also submit? Because I know sometimes RFPs are created in a manner to specifically weed out other people so that only the person that does that. I know that that's probably not done here, but just wanted to
Bobby will
ask
not allow that.
I saw his face. Just want to put that out there. I'm very familiar with the RFP processes, and so this gives me peace of mind in moving forward with that decision. Thank you for answering that.
What I'll add as well is, as I spoke with a few of the referrals that they had listed for Crowder Golf, I spoke with the city of Austin, and they just utilized Crowder Golf with the winter freeze to help clean a lot of the debris that they experienced in February. They have 3 different contracts. They gave Crowder Golf their most intense and devastated area, and they said they communicated daily. They were very responsive. They were on top of things. Even though they had the most work to do, they got it done the fastest and the most professionally, and so it eased my concerns with moving forward with this. So they were very highly regarded.
Okay, and do you agree with all that? There, you checked them off the box?
They did really well for us during
Awesome.
the events of Hurricane Ike.
Okay, good. All right. Perfect. Thank you for all those informative statements.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All right, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. We have agenda item number 10, moving on through. Consideration and possible action to award the contract for emergency debris monitoring services, RFP number 2023-03-001, to Debris Tech and authorize the interim city manager to negotiate the terms of the agreement and execute the contract documents.
Thank you, Mayor. Similar to the one that we just discussed, there was a selection criteria, and this company rose to the top of the one submittal that we received. So that was a little easier to look at. Tammy, can you tell them about the current name, right? It's the same company in general, right?
So it actually, when we had our first one, it was Crowder Golf was our cleanup. Ashbrit was our monitoring. In order to get the funds reimbursed through FEMA, whenever there's a disaster, they do the cleanup, but they also have to have a company monitor what's being done, or else we can't get our reimbursements. So Ashbrit then changed. They got bought out by Debris Tech, which is who we currently have, and then DRC, I think this company purchased.
This one is Debris Tech. Wasn't the other one Beck or something like that?
Beck,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that's what it was. Ashbrit, Beck, and then this one, I think, bought Beck. So I think it's the same company, just different ownership.
And I would just say, Mayor, this is just like the previous one. Prayerfully, we never have to use either one of these companies, right? But if we do, they're the ones that will help with all of the accounting side, and hopefully we get reimbursed through FEMA and everything.
Myself and the interim city manager attended an emergency preparedness seminar that happened in Angleton last week. And the monitoring side and the reporting side is key, because in order to ensure that our county gets allocations from FEMA, you have to reach a certain threshold. So ensuring that we're properly documenting everything as the community, as staff, and the city is important. So appreciate y'all bringing this forward. Do I have any other questions or comments from council? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Agenda item number 11, consideration and possible action to approve a third-party company to provide professional executive search services for the city manager position and authorize the interim city manager to execute the agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. So the involvement that the interim city manager will have in this particular action item will be very brief. I'll help Chad, and I think, Chad, can you kind of come up and give them a little background on some of your options that you have? Should the council decide to go with one of these third-party firms, then obviously I would remain hands-off during that selection process, just to say that out loud. Thanks, Chad.
Mayor, council, my name's Chad Dumont. I'm the HR manager, for those of you that I've not met. I'm the guy that when people are hiring in, they love to hear from. And then I'm also the guy that people get a little bit of a pit in their stomach when they get a call from me during their employment saying, hey, let's have a private conversation in the office. But we move forward. Just to give a little background, the staff wanted to be proactive on gathering some preliminary information on the third-party sourcing firms that were out. My 2 years with the city, we've only engaged a sourcing firm once, and that was for our finance director, and we really did not have much luck with that. In the HR world, we have an unofficial HR group that we get together once a week with about 300 different HR managers and professionals. We use this time to discuss policies, HR trends, issues of the day, stuff of that nature. I use this opportunity to get with other cities on who they've used for third parties. Overwhelmingly, the cities that responded came up with SGR, a group called Strategic Government Resources. SGR has been used by over 100+ cities in Texas and nationwide in the past 4 years successfully. There were other firms that were mentioned, but none of them had the overall resume that SGR had, and they were all around the $25K to $30K as far as fees. Afterwards, I reached out to the city of Pearland and the city of Kemah. Both of those have either recently hired a city manager or in that process. Pearland, again, used and recommended SGR. Kemah recommended a company called Clear Career Professionals. It was the first time that I heard of them, so I asked a little bit as far as why. They told me that they were a newer firm, they had better prices, and they showed a great attention to detail. Kind of piqued my interest, so I reached out to both SGR and CCP. We were able to get proposals from both. SGR has a fee of around $26,650 to $27,400 as far as total fees. CCP had a total fixed fee of $17,000. Both of the firms offer a full-service review, from reviewing the job description, creating brochures, advertising, interview, securing interviews, supplying the city with a semifinalist list and also a finalist list. And both have agreed that they would be ready to engage starting on July 5th or as soon as council gives the action to move forward. I did want to state to council that we do have one other option as far as handling this all in-house. These activities, we'd be able to advertise through the city website, through TML, TCMA, ICMA, general advertising. This would be a lot cheaper, but this is also going to be a very monumental task that we want to make sure that we get right when we get the right person. This is going to be very time consuming, which again, if tasked, we can do. But would like the council to take a look at both of those options. Any questions?
I appreciate the work, Chad, that you and staff have done to get us to this point and being proactive in this area. That's important, just because time is of the essence with this. We do not want to let it hanging out there for too long. I think our community, our city employees need clear direction as to what the future is heading. So, I'll open it up to council. My ask is that, tonight we do, as such, we provide specific action and direction to staff as to how to move forward with this process. That way we can take the necessary steps to permanently fill this position. And so do I have any comments or questions from council?
Just, and it may not have as much bearing, but has either of these companies kind of been vetted through SHRM to the Society for Human Resources Managers to?
SGR is very heavily recommended by SHRM.
That's what I needed to hear. Thank you.
Any other comments from Councilman Lance?
What is your personal feeling on us trying to do this in-house?
Sir, I always like to look at things from a fiscal standpoint. As we need to be good stewards of the citizens' budget. Being that we want to get this process started, it is also coinciding with our benefit year as well. Starting in July through the end of August, we're going to be working very heavily with the staff as far as getting all their benefits done. This process, looking at SGR and CCP, is going to take about 16 weeks. So it's going to be very time consuming as far as going through resumes, going through interviews, checking credentials. It's something that we can do, but it's going to take a lot of time. And the time of year we are on with benefits, it's going to be not the greatest time to be doing both at the same time.
And Chad, can you remind us how many employees you have in the HR department?
Employee of one.
So I have a couple of statements. I understand that it's very difficult to manage and run the HR side of things for a massive, what I like to call business. There's 100+ employees, right? However, I recognize the fact that we have an amazing interim city manager. And yes, we have to do our due diligence for the community's sake and look at resumes. I do know that having a search firm do the work for us is the easier way to go, but it also is another cost associated with our separation agreement that we looked at when we, entered into separation with our previous city manager. So just because today we've heard from the departments and the budget's coming up and everybody has an ask, there's always an ask. Everybody wants to pay less taxes and everybody wants more money. So I would like to consider what that would look like for us to just do our due diligence in-house, I would say for the time being. And if it becomes burdensome and if we can't find it, or if we find that we just have this big hole and for some ungodly reason our current interim city manager can't do the job, then we execute and move forward with the search firm. But I don't think it's necessary at this point. I'm just going to state that.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any comments from council in regards to that? Okay, do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
To approve what?
Do I have to read the whole thing? You do it.
Well, what I'm asking, Councilwoman, is your motion is to direct staff to move forward with posting the job and going through the recruitment process in-house rather than hiring a third-party firm.
Yes. Yeah.
No, you can ask your question. Well, what I would ask, let's do it like this. What I would ask is, if that's your motion, if you can make that motion, then we'll get a second, then we'll open it up for discussion, and then we'll take a vote.
Perfect. So I'm making a motion for us to take this task in-house for the time being. And if it becomes too burdensome, then we look for the search firm, SRG.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or statements from council?
Just one. So I just want to ask you one more time. So I heard you say that it could be done, it's time consuming. Can you just realistically tell us, is this something you want and think you can take on successfully?
Sir, I've never backed down from a challenge, and I will do my best. And if we run into issues to where it becomes too time consuming, I will definitely let the city manager know. Again, I'm letting everyone know this is not going to be an easy task because we have a lot of other issues that we're working with as well. But we will do everything we can.
Okay.
Just to give council a heads up, when this was done back in 2011, we had well over 100 applicants from all over, out of state, in state. We had Ron Cox Consulting as the company that narrowed those down for the search at that time. I think the initial salary was set at $80,000. So to give you an idea, from where we were to then, I cannot imagine it could be well into the couple hundreds of reading and reviewing, and so, just so everyone's aware of how big of a turnout we had the first go-around.
Thank you. I'm just deeply concerned that it's overwhelming for one person to do their job, right, coming up, and do this. This is where you're throwing a lot on one person.
So
It's such
if I may.
a large task. I just don't think we have the resources to do that.
So if I may, this is something that I do for a living as well, is headhunt. So I understand the task that's associated with it. Again, my reasoning behind it is there's a big fee, right? And right now we have somebody in the role. That's where I'm coming from. We have somebody here that's doing it. So and from my understanding, I do understand that in 2011, we had a huge influx of people that were interested. I don't know that that's the case today. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. And that's all I'm saying is we don't really know until we go out there and we test the waters. I always advise people to use search firms. It's the best way to go. They do the work for you. They bring the candidates and then you vet them and you hire them, right? So what do we want to do as a council? Do we want to open it up and actually have a search firm look for candidates and interview them? I mean, we discussed this back there, so.
Well, again, I think that would be the best avenue, right? And then, because the HR manager is a one-person army. It's going to be very difficult to do all their job and do that, right? I think it's just it'd be better money well spent to contract the service.
Dan?
The only other thing I was going to add is, I mean, obviously Chad and I are constantly, putting together job descriptions and looking for folks. And so one thing that you might consider is putting a window on it. That would help, a cutoff period, if you will, so that you're not still getting applicants 6 months from now. Just a thought.
Councilman Hudson?
Is it any way that we can table that proposal and move on from that right now?
So we have a motion in a second. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to take a vote on that motion in a second. If it fails, then we still have the agenda item before us, that at that point, a motion to table could be made to allow us to group over the next 2 weeks. What I would caution council with is if there is a desire to table, that's an additional 2-week delay with this. And do we want to continue to delay it for 2 weeks? But we do have a motion and a second in front of us that we'll have to take a vote on, dispose of that motion, and then we can continue with the conversation based off of the results of that vote. Okay? So we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes 5-2. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Chad, what we'll ask with that is, I'll have to ask this directly to you because there needs to be a degree of separation. Keep us up to date, please. Work with Tammy, work with Bobby. Keep us up to date. If it becomes that it's too much, too slow, you let us know and we'll take immediate action to go another direction. But we'll need to keep that line of communication open, please.
Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item number 12, which is consideration and possible action to appoint finance manager Rosa Donner. Did I say that last name correct? All right, awesome. To the TERS 3 board position 4 and the SMDA board position 4. Dan?
So, as you know, there is a TERS board that it largely consists of Meridiana subdivision, but it also actually jumps just a little bit out of Meridiana, and so that's a tax increment reinvestment zone. The commissioner or the board members that are on that TERS board, one of them is no longer employed with the city and has moved away. That was Chris Thomas, of course, and so it's sort of been, I guess, a tradition, if you will, that the finance manager or finance director, either one, served in that role. So that's really all we're asking, is that we backfill that position with Rosie now that she's on staff with us.
Rosie, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
Not really. I mean, I'm here to serve the city in any capacity you guys need me, so I've never turned down a challenge either.
Well, we're excited to have you here with us. Any comments or questions from council? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Rosie, congratulations, and may the odds be in your favor. We now have an update and presentation by Brooke Cyphers on community-involved strategic planning. So Brooke, what do you have for us?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Are y'all sick of presentations yet? I'm hoping that mine is at least interesting enough to keep everybody invested. So I'm here to provide an update on the listening sessions and offer my thoughts on how to best go about capturing the resident feedback that Council seems to be interested in. So first, I want to go over what I understand are Council's goals when approaching these listening sessions. So the first goal is, of course, engagement. We want to engage the community and the stakeholders in the development of the city and make sure that we're hearing their feedback. The second is in identifying what residents and stakeholders envision for the city. And of course, lastly, is just executing that vision. And I want to say that I really love these goals. I have a lot of experience in collecting this kind of feedback, and I know that it is such a boon to the city and staff and council in trying to develop a strategic plan moving forward. So, as you might have guessed, as my role in the organization, I really value resident feedback and input and everything. So, let me say it another way. Kind of lost my spot. Right. So as you've guessed in my organization, community engagement, input, and education is a passion of mine. And one of my favorite parts of the job is problem solving. And one of the best ways to go about problem solving is to first identify what our challenges are going to be. So what are our challenges? Data collection and meaningful data collection is not as easy as setting a date and location. Data collection is a little bit more complex. Without carefully planned and structured forum, it can be extremely difficult to accurately identify what residents are asking of us. And some problems I anticipate are going to be focused around confusion. Asking residents to plan for our future is a really broad and amorphous question, and the gamut of answers that we'll receive are going to range from facilities to zoning to a mowing schedule. This kind of spaghetti-at-the-wall approach to community engagement isn't going to provide us with a lot to go off of, and it might just create more confusion. With this method, it also becomes different to manage expectations. Facilities and mowing could not be more dissimilar. One of those can be accomplished in a week, and one of those can't be accomplished in a fiscal year. Now, that seems obvious to us because we work behind the scenes. But from the outside looking in, the perception might be a little bit different. No one, of course, no one believes that an entire building is going to be erected in a single day. But on the outside, it may appear that we're prioritizing certain goals and aspirations of the community over others. And worse yet, the person that wanted a facility might not have even wanted a mowing schedule. They've got it taken care of themselves, you know. So that leads me to what I think our biggest challenge is going to be in these community engagement sessions, and that is connecting community goals. As an evolving city, we find that our demographics are always in flux, which means that the vision for the community is always in flux. One of our greatest strengths as a city is in our diversity, though I guess at first glance it might be a little bit hard to tell. Manvel's unique blend of urban and rural residents, as well as the infancy that we find our growth in, puts us in a really unique, if challenging position to find commonalities among these seemingly opposing views. Now, it's not an impossible task, but it's certainly a long one. And luckily, we're not a city past its rise, and we're not a city that rose, we're a city on the rise, which means that we have the luxury of planning ahead. So, where do we start? Well, as I mentioned before, I have a couple of ideas that I'm going to present to you this evening. The first is simple. The city can move forward with the listening sessions. It will be the most cost-effective and quickest method. We can arrange the sessions over the next few months. We can outline an agenda, provide comment cards, and put together presentations, breakout sessions, think tanks, the whole 9 yards. The second option, however, is to bring in a consultant that specializes in this kind of community engagement. In your packet, I provided links to a 20-year strategic planning report from my previous city. It was called Vision 2040. And I also provided a community engagement report that was also delivered to my previous city. These reports were developed over the course of 8 months and 34 community engagement sessions. This slide outlines the evolution of these sessions. We began in May of 2018 with an extensive community survey that helped us first establish a baseline for community goals. From there, the process moved into scenario planning, a scenario planning think tank workshop, which is kind of a mouthful. But it helped further outline and define the goals that we first heard back in the community survey. After that, community engagement sessions were held from August to October, and in November, a reconvened think tank was held. At this point, the community goals were really starting to take shape, as you can imagine, and the final stage of the process was a focus group. And this really helped us finalize our data-driven, consensus-based vision, which is also a mouthful. This was a very thorough and involved process, and we had over 2,000 unique inputs. But the community wasn't just involved as participants. A select group of community members worked with the city and the consulting company behind the scenes. And this was the executive committee. They were our community ambassadors for the project. It was 12 members, and they outlined the principles and promoted transparency and inclusivity throughout the project. These ambassadors were an essential part of the success of the program. And they not only worked behind the scenes, but they advocated for the project within the community, because they're part of the community. They encouraged their neighbors and friends to come out and give us their feedback and really help to identify how important this was to building a strategic plan that's going to last something like 20 years. Their dedication over the months of this project was really astounding. They were able to effectively communicate the scope of the project, which was 20 years, and define what information was going to be collected from them, i.e. of facilities versus a mowing schedule. And they were crucial in helping residents understand what the city was asking of them. At the end of this project, a 48-page strategic plan was delivered to us, the city, and it outlined our community's goals and pointed to specific data that supported it. I want to show you an example of one of these community goals, or pillars, as we called them, from my previous city. And I know it's a lot of words on the screen. I'm not going to read them all out to you, and I know they're really small, so you can't read them either. But don't panic. I'm just going to go over it really quickly. First, the name of it is creating business and innovation nodes. Well, okay, what does that mean? Because it sounds just like a bunch of buzzwords, but it's not. The summary of this is Capel has several significant business and commercial nodes. These are clustered in the west side of the city. Increasingly, cities are working to create new models of business and innovation nodes to help encourage the reinvention of retail spaces and attract small businesses and startups. And again, what does that mean? Because it's hard to understand. But what we identified as being the community goal was that the residents of our community had a desire for a new style of commercial and local growth. And then after identifying this still somewhat amorphous concept, we could then begin to determine more tangible goals and action items, which are listed below. And again, I'm not going to read them all to you, but I do want to point out number 2 specifically. This goal is encourage redevelopment of hotspots along the Denton Tap Sandy Lake corridor as a major creativity zone. And the definition of it is the concept of a creativity and innovation zone. This idea was of particular interest to young people. This zone is right at the heart of Capel and could represent an opportunity to tap into the intellectual and creative aspirations of the community. So what this goal, first we started with the pillar, a really buzzwordy title. Then we broke it down a little bit further into a summary. And now this goal here has identified a specific idea that the community has shown to be of particular interest relating to creativity. And then in this one in particular, it even tells us a location of where the community would like this node or creativity node to be located. Now, fulfilling this goal couldn't be done in a single budget year, but the community knows that now because they went through this process. And they also know that the city is working towards completing a goal every budget cycle because the city can now share with the community why X or Y project or something relates to a specific goal, why we're asking the community to be able to fund whatever it is we're trying to fund. It also helps the residents know that we're listening and reaffirms that the city always has them in mind with every development decision that it makes. So in closing, I just want to say that, much like Rome, Manvel isn't going to be built in a day. It won't be built in a single fiscal year. But I do want to commend council for this proactive approach to strategic planning. And I'm really happy that you're finding ways to involve the community in it. And whatever direction you have for us tonight, whether it be in pursuing this strategic plan through a consulting company or having us do it in-house, it's only going to be to the benefit of the community. Growth is inevitable, but it's not immutable, and Manvel citizens still have a say in how that city is going to be changed by the growth. And with that, I thank you for your time and open it up to questions.
Well, phenomenal presentation, Brooke. What, is this all done on PowerPoint, or did you use, it is? Nice.
Yes, it is.
It's pretty
I
good.
just am really good at PowerPoint.
Well, I appreciate you took what I brought forward as a very limited and naive idea, and it just expounded on that exponentially. I think this, I believe, Dan, you have experience of this in Friendswood. Brooke, you have experience. The city of Pearland did this 2 years ago as well. It's what I think Councilwoman Sarmiento and Councilman Perry had brought forward about engaging the community to get that feedback from them, to know what the pulse is. We can sit here in these seats and we can discuss what we think it is, but to have something tangible and actionable with realistic timelines is extremely important. So I love what you put together. I would be interested in knowing what the next step would be like for this. I don't want to rush to do anything. I want to be methodical and strategic about it, and this seems like the right thing to do. So understanding what the cost would be, what the actual execution would look like for this, I'd be very interested in learning more myself.
Yes.
And
if I could just add, so if the term comp plan or comprehensive plan is floating around in your brain, this isn't a comp plan, but this would be a precursor to a comp plan update. Okay, this is what do the citizens want, right? That was a question that we ask often. So this is really to help get everybody focused on that question, and then we go into the comp plan, which I believe Jessica actually was asking for that in the budget as well last year. So if we can do that update, but we kind of need this first. So
Yeah, I should have been a little bit more clear. Yeah, this helps us. When I was talking about what challenges we might face, I did mention that it's difficult to ask residents to tell us what they want because it's going to vary so much. And also other residents, say, wouldn't want a fitness center or something like that. So finding commonalities is really important. This would help us find commonalities. And even though, again, it looks like buzzwords, what it is identifying what is the overarching ask is from the community. And then, yes, a comp plan would be developed afterwards as we try to identify. It gives staff the opportunity to identify what is, in this example, a creativity node. Is it an art center? Is it a complex? Is it just a building? We don't know, but it could be anything. And it's just a little bit more freedom to staff to say, okay, let's go and explore this option. Oh, and I guess I can answer the question about the cost. So in Capel, the price of this was around $120,000, so it is not cheap. And I totally understand if there's reluctance around that. I do see it as an investment in the community and our future. It's going to give us a 20-year plan. There's also portions of that, or there's a very important aspect of this plan is that we reconvene every 2 to 3 years. You know, we are a really rapidly developing city. And so, again, the vision might shift, and we always want to get a read on the pulse of the community every couple of years. But this helps us really identify long-term, what do you want to see?
Well, and I think and that's exactly it. It's what's the target that we're trying to hit as a city government. You know, I talk a lot about how I want to ensure that our city employees are equipped with the resources and the tools that they need to be successful. But if we don't know what direction that we're going, if we don't know what we're trying to hit for the community, then you're out there, playing pin the tail on the donkey with being blindfolded after being spun around. And then when you don't hit the mark, then you get blamed by the community, but you don't know where the mark is to hit. I think there might be opportunities as well to look to partner with the EDC, partner with the chamber. Maybe there's opportunities out there through the Texas Workforce Development Program, other opportunities to find the funding to do this. Because if we do the legwork now, I think it's going to help us address some of the root issues that we're seeing, some of the challenges that we're seeing, and propel us forward. But any comments or questions from Councilwoman Sarmiento?
I love the way that, number one, fantastic job. Kudos for getting up there with a microphone. I mentioned kudos to everybody else earlier because public speaking is it's a challenge for many people. And
You can tell I was a little bit rusty there.
but you did so well, and so did our earlier speakers. Everybody just did so well. Thank you for putting this together. I can see that you put a lot of effort, thought into this, and I can see how putting another task on our organization can become burdensome, right? Especially when you operate in perfection, like yourself and Chad do and our other staff. One of the things that you said earlier that really resonated with me is that because we are so diverse, this is a potential to create not connecting. This can create the environment for the city to not agree on a lot, and it become a source of disagreement instead. And so in my experience, I find that sometimes when it's not complicated, right? When we don't go out there and provide a survey that's 500 questions, it has to be simple. It has to be streamlined, simplified, and something that people want to participate in. Right? What are the main things that we want feedback from the community on? Why are we creating the survey? Why? We're creating the survey to hear back from them. Now, what do we want to hear back from them? Do we want to hear about tax dollars, growth, community, like you said, nodes? And so I think that we don't have to complicate it. I think that putting it out there and putting something, again, efficient and simplified and streamlined, and starting small and just seeing what the engagement is. Because if we go spend $125,000 on a firm, that's encompassing marketing dollars and all of the other resources that it takes to mobilize this little entity, this survey, right? And then the response. And like we said in the previous council meeting, even if we do the listening sessions, what's the biggest problem or challenge we're going to have is attendance and people participating in the survey. So I just want to be very cautious that we don't create something that creates more conflict or more separation, rather something that unifies our community. But that's easy to do and where they feel heard, and we also get feedback on where we want to move our city forward with. And I think that maybe an opportunity would be to start small, do something small, in-house, a Google Doc, just something to see what the engagement is. And maybe from there create a milestone, or then say, hey, we had 5,000 people really interested in this survey. Maybe it's time to take it up a notch. These are just ideas. And so I love, love, love that we're taking action with this type of topic. Yes. But that's just something that I wanted to bring to the table is why start so big? Let's start small, save some money, and just see what happens. Just a thought.
And that totally makes sense, and that is definitely something we can pursue. In my experience, and also seeing what we see of residents here, there is a lot of desire to be engaged. I mean, you can look at the PD&Z meeting from last week where we had almost an entire subdivision come out and talk about a gas station. You know, the desire is there to be heard. And I think as long as we provide the opportunity, residents will come. I think the challenge of doing it on this magnitude would actually just be in marketing and in awareness. So that would be, as you said, another fee of trying to get it out there. But also, as I mentioned, the community ambassadors that were selected is a huge part of mobilizing our community. But I mean, I can tell in my previous city, we did not have this level of engagement that we have here in Manvel. And I do think that there's definitely opportunity to have people come out, and I think it would be a success either way.
Just comment. Very good presentation.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council?
Just again, excellent presentation. And to speak to what Councilwoman Sarmiente.
Why is that so hard?
Too many syllables for my tongue.
I know.
Yeah, was saying, and I agree, it can be simplified. I mean, again, you want to identify what the main dependent variable is, and probably for most of us, it's going to be money, how much it costs to do it, and then identify some independent variables, narrow them down, and at least start there. But I love the presentation.
So I think coming from this, Brooke, I think the action would be based off of what Councilwoman Sarmiento said and Councilman Perry and kind of the direction that we're heading. If you want to circle back with Dan and come up with, if we were to go with a firm, what would that scope look like? What would that cost be that's associated with that scope? That way we have some actionable items to discuss. I think you've given us a lot to think about tonight, but in order for us to determine what we want to do moving forward, seeing some of that more clear direction in regards to what that would actually look like, what that would entail, how can we partner with other entities that have a vested interest in Manvel, such as the Chamber, such as the ADC, because we all will find a benefit from this.
If I could just add, as you know, Brooke actually just sent out a questionnaire on a different topic, but that's very good timing to kind of see what kind of feedback are we going to get, and what do we do with the data that we get? Is it a bunch of notes, off to the side, or is it empirical evidence that we can do something with? So I think this is perfect timing to see what we can do in house, and maybe like you said, small steps. We just keep going from that. What about this topic? What about this topic? So. We'll be talking some more.
Yes.
Awesome. Do you have any questions for us, Brooke?
No, I think you gave me some pretty clear direction. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Brooke. Moving on from agenda item number 13 to item 14, this is consideration and possible action to direct staff on the naming of facilities. So this is an item that I had brought forward that was, I brought it forward back in 2019 about, in order to know where we're going, we have to know where we've been. And we need to find ways in order to honor our past as we prepare for the future. And at that point in time, it was very premature in regards to potentially looking at naming different facilities. But right now, we have a police station that's about to be built. We're talking about a wastewater treatment plant. We have a city hall annex. We have a community services building. We have some park land as well that just kind of is always referred to out there as a mouthful. And so in talking with Dan and Tammy, there were some ideas that were thrown around about some things that we could do and how this will set the standard that as we move forward to look to name some facilities here. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dan and Tammy.
Sure, I'll start off. I was hoping we could get the exhibits up there, but you do have them in your packet. Three specific locations that we were going to talk about this evening. You've heard it called the City of Manvel Drainage Pond. You've heard it called the pond on Jordan Road, the 117 acres, 116 acres. So all of those names are clever. Not really. And just, sort of difficult to refer to. And we've been talking internally. Is it okay to sort of unveil what we've discussed? There's a family that has served on city council 4 different times since the 80s, and he's actually still on council right now. That's Mr. Akery, and as a way to honor his wife and his commitment to the community, we wanted to propose the idea of, whether it's Akery Pond or Acre Lake. It's going to be difficult not to say Acre Lakery, though, if we do that. As I kept repeating that, I want it to work, but I don't know. Is it Acre Pond or Acre Park or whatnot? So that's the first one we're going to talk about.
Well, yeah, that's nice, but the end result of this is a recreation area. I mean, the primary thing is a flood control for Highway 6 and everything, but we want it to be a recreation, so that would sound a little better, I think, but I appreciate that,
Acre Recreation Center? I'm going to veto that one.
and flood control.
Nope, you don't get a say in this. Never mind.
I'm scared now.
Anyway, so that's the first one, and we would look to probably come back with a resolution of a name, and we can discuss that more. Another one is the County Road 58 Sand Pit, also a beautiful name up there. And another person that was actually our mayor for 16 years and is still involved in the community, and that's Dolores Martin. We've been wanting to name something after her for so long, and she, as Tammy, you can probably actually fill in the gap on that as far as her involvement with that purchase.
So, of course, over those years, Dolores was involved in a lot of things for the city and different pieces of property that were acquired. That one specifically, the owner was David Smith. He was a realtor and also our emergency management coordinator at the time for many years, retired law enforcement for 50 some odd years, was a Texas Ranger. So he had reached out to Dolores through their friendship to offer that piece of property to the city. Not sure we would have maybe gotten that without her here and without their friendship and without the council taking action on it. And he was a special person to her. It'd really be nice if something from that family was able to be named after her. As we were thinking, it was either that or maybe a library, but it seemed like we already own this. And she played such an instrumental role in that piece of property.
And then the third one is a park that has not come to fruition yet completely, but it's in Meridiana, and it's about a 20-acre park. And actually, I guess you can talk about that one too. So this gentleman, he's passed now, but he had, I think, four different terms on council when I first started helping the city. In fact, he was one of our council members when we used to meet, not next door at the old council chambers, but the old council chambers, which is now Chief's, let's see, whose office is that now? Anyway, it's the Manvel Police Department. That used to be the council chambers, if you haven't heard stories. And those were, that whole building you could fit easily in this room for sure. But anyway, Buddy Williams was a heck of a guy and instrumental in that property as well. Tammy, you want to talk about that one?
So at one point, Buddy worked really hard with the Lions Club to try to bring a ball field park to the city. It didn't really work out for us, so that moved over to Iowa Colony. However, when it came to land and roads and drainage as well, Buddy was on council when I started with the city and really helped drive the city in the right direction with keeping in mind what it would take for parks and the importance of parks and green space and purchasing land and getting land from the developers before some of the other people even thought of that. His wife was a retired realtor. He loved this city as did his wife, and it'd be nice if something could be given back in the way of a name for them to be remembered. They've both since deceased and are buried here in Manvel.
So basically, the next step, we haven't done this traditionally in Manvel. We don't have very many, other than obviously Croy Park, which was from the Croy family. We haven't traditionally had names for these different facilities, and just maybe we can change that. Maybe we have a new council and a lot of new staff, so that's kind of what we're coming to you with. Maybe some ideas, and if you like those three or any of those three, we can bring a resolution back to you at the next meeting so that you can put them forward. And if it looks like that's a positive thing that we want to do, then we could, invite those people, obviously, and their families, and have a little, whether it's a proclamation. I think it would actually be a resolution, right, Bobby? We'd have to do to name them. But
To build off of that, and appreciate Tammy and Dan, you guys have given us that overview. As we bring online more government facilities, there's an opportunity there where we would also look to partner with the community and receive feedback, as well as to how can we honor our past by naming these important, significant items and steps that we're taking here. So, Council, are you guys good with moving forward with these three?
I like Lakery.
And for that as well, I mean, it's the entire land is big. Maybe you look to do something where, because, Larry, I know, very passionate about drainage, and you're our drainage subject matter expert, and looking, maybe you name the lake or pond portion of it, and then you have the recreation side that's maybe named something else. But if you trust us, let us work on this the next 2 weeks, and we can bring something forward to you.
Go right ahead.
All right. All right, Dan, you good? You got your direction? Awesome. All right, so we'll move forward from that. We're on mayor and council comments. Anything from council? Very quickly, like I stated at the meeting in June, I just want to more so focus on work anniversaries and just make sure that we acknowledge our hardworking employees for being with us another year. We have, in July, these individuals that are celebrating their work anniversaries. We have Evelyn Abundis, Jerry Ray Alvarez. We have Dan Johnson, Derek Byers, Jose Abraham, Oscar Hinosa, Michelle Vela, Jonathan Garcia, and Anthony Michelle. So thank you for being with the city another year. We appreciate each and every one of you. All right, with that, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0.